Chapter 537. I'm the representative of Longhu Club. Hearing this, Kai Zhongming and the rest looked at each other excitedly. They patted Lu Qing on the shoulder and walked past him to the elevator. Hello. Lu Qing locked his phone and nodded with a smile. Hello, my surname is Zhang. Today, I'm mainly here to discuss the general conditions and our arrangements for the future. If you feel that there are no problems, we will draft a contract and send it to you in a few days. Mr. Zhang pointed to the cafe next to the lobby. Let's sit and talk. Sure. Lu Qing didn't refuse. After ordering a drink, Mr. Zhang crossed his fingers and placed them in front of his chest. He smiled and said, judging from your reaction, you really won't be returning to Wuyue Club. I'm relieved. Longhu Club's initial plan is to offer you a 5-year contract with a yearly salary of 10 million. 10 million? Lu Qing was surprised. According to the information published online, a veteran 4th pin Mighty One's annual salary was only 6 to 7 million. The difference wasn't big for foreign grandmasters of martial arts of the same level. Money in China was still very valuable. Mr. Zhang chuckled and said, Dragon King suggested that you be treated as a quasi-physical invulnerability expert. This is only your salary and doesn't include bonuses or benefits. If you don't mind, I'll talk about the subsequent terms. I'm very satisfied. Lu Qing replied with a smile. He didn't bargain. This was much better than what he had expected. Moreover, Dragon King had fought hard for it. If he asked for more, he would be too greedy. Mr. Zhang took a sip of his black coffee. He pushed his glasses and said, the main source of bonuses is from winning. For every match you win, depending on the importance of the match, you'll get a bonus of 100,000 to 200,000. In addition, you'll get a share of the club's final ranking. He picked the important points and said, the benefits will be based on the income from the club's related industries. If you're not a physical invulnerability expert, it won't be much. After you make the big leap, your annual salary and bonuses will be just pocket money. Of course, if you want to get more, you'll have to work for the club. This isn't mandatory. I have no problem with the general terms. When the time comes, I'll get a lawyer to take a look. Lu Qing nodded in agreement. That's what you should do. Mr. Zhang smiled and talked about other agreements. When he reached a preliminary agreement with Lu Qing, he moved on to the next arrangement. Is it okay to report before July? No. Lu Qing shook his head. With your current realm and strength, it would be very difficult for you to participate in the top professional competitions. It's also quite risky. We'll give you some time to digest the Dan stage unique skill of the Fire Sect. We'll register you for the preliminaries of the Battle of the Kings in mid-August. After that, we'll make similar arrangements. We'll strive to let you have a high-level battle every week. Next year, in February or March, if you agree, I will let you experience it for yourself in a 2nd or 3rd-tier professional team that you have a good relationship with. If there is a serious injury, the club will take care of the first 3 months. After that, the insurance company will take care of the rest. You can rest assured. In short, the goal is for you to make the great leap and achieve physical invulnerability within 3 years. By the way, I forgot to mention that we have the priority to renew the contract. We can also buy out the contract. Mr. Zhang emphasized his words with his hand gestures to show his confidence in Lu Qing. The 4-tier professional competitions in China started at the end of February, or the beginning of March, and ended at the end of December, or the beginning of January every year. The central government would have 2 long breaks, as well as a gap to make way for the 5 major title competitions. Among the 5 major title competitions, the Battle of the Kings would be held from mid-August to early September every year. In the first 2 weeks of December, there would be an elimination battle to determine the challenger of the previous king. In March or April of the following year, the winner of 2 out of 3 rounds would be the new king. The title competitions of the Warrior Sage, Supreme Class, Master, and Kirin had similar arrangements. They would take advantage of the gaps in the professional competitions. The only difference was that each competition format was slightly different. For example, the top 3 of the Supreme Class would be eliminated in an elimination battle. They would form a 4-man round-robin with the previous champion. They would face off against each other once, and the one with the best record would win the title. If there was a tie, there would be a tiebreaker. After Lu Qing asked for a few details and expressed his opinion, the preliminary discussion ended happily. Mr. Zhang drank the last mouthful of black coffee and extended his hand with a smile. Then I'll go back and draft the contract. Congratulations on joining the Longhu Club. We're on the same side from now on. Lu Qing extended his hand and shook the other party's hand. Goodbye. Rest early. Mr. Zhang waved his hand and left with a face full of joy. Watching his back disappear at the entrance of the cafe, Lu Qing sat down again. Looking at the dimly lit environment, listening to the gentle and melodious music, he drank a mouthful of slightly sour lemon water to quench his thirst. He suddenly realized that a journey in his life had come to an end, and a new adventure was about to begin. He had always known that he would leave school after the national championship and enter society after his third-year exams. However, knowing clearly and feeling clearly were two completely different concepts. Now that things had come to a head, the footsteps of the future were stepping on his heart one step at a time. It was anticipation, hope, sadness, and melancholy. I'm leaving the martial arts club and the relatively simple school. What will the adult world, the world of professional martial arts, be like? After July, I won't be able to travel to and from America as frequently as I did this year, let alone stay for 10 days to half a month. I might only be able to go once every 2 or 3 months, and I can only stay for 3 to 5 days each time. Brother-in-law was right when he said that the frivolous days of youth would end as soon as he matured. The melody of the music entered his ears. Wearing a black t-shirt, Lu Qing sat there with a cup in his hand. He didn't move for a long time, as if he had become a shadow in the dim light. 2 days later, he watched the final match between Shanbei and Capital. Renli used the Kongtong swordsmanship, which was based on the unique skills of the Wind Sect, supplemented by hidden scent, and narrowly defeated Peng Liyun, who had gone through a fierce battle and was not in his best condition. Feng Zhirong, who had not recovered from his internal injuries and was ravaged by Renli, finally lost to Jiang Kongchan. Of course, Lu Qing didn't let Jiang Kongchan off easily. The influence of the dark poison force had greatly reduced Jiang Kongchan's strength, so he couldn't win by himself. In the end, Jiang Jingfeng, who didn't show his strength, defeated Bernhard, drawing a perfect end to the hard work of the Capital Academy in the past few years. After this year, Peng Liyun, Renli, Jiang Jingfeng, Xing Jingjing, and Piao Yuan all graduated. Lu Cheng, Li Xiaoyuan, and Feng Zhirong entered professional competitions in advance. The University Martial Arts Circle fell back to the level it was 2 years ago. It was foreseeable that there would be no such glorious and brilliant situation in the future. He Xiaowei, who was bald, commented, "The golden age of the University Martial Arts Circle has come to an end. P.S. I think it's better to put the following content in a chapter, so this chapter has fewer words." Well, this is the last chapter of the 3rd book. Chapter 538. At the end of June, there were fewer and fewer students in the campus of Songqing University. In the season of summer, when the fruits on the branches were full, there was a sense of desolation in the air. Dormitory 302, Unit 2, Building 7. Lu Qing opened the closet and looked at some t-shirts, pants, and shirts in a mess. He was a little confused. These were the leftovers from Coach Yan's long-distance selection. At his feet, the 28-inch suitcase was full. The cardboard boxes were sealed with tape and pasted with express deliveries, waiting to be sent out. If you don't want your old clothes, you can take them to Building 12. A few seniors seemed to be organizing a donation drive. Zhao Chang tidied up his luggage and glanced at Lu Cheng. "Not bad. I'll go there tomorrow." Lu Qing closed the closet door and turned around. He looked at Chang, who had been the head of the dormitory for 3 years. "When are you coming back?" "Tomorrow afternoon. I'll go to Songqing Normal University first." Zhao Chang pushed his black-rimmed glasses shyly and asked, "What about you?" "My flight is at noon the day after tomorrow." Lu Qing smiled and looked around. He invited, "Let's get together tonight?" "Sure." Zhao Chang agreed readily. Qiu Zhigao, who was showing off his muscles, stopped and laughed. "I was waiting for you to say that." Zhang Jingye, the model worker, looked away from the lines of code on the computer screen and picked up his phone. "Okay, I'll tell Wu Qian first. Then I'll ask next door." Lu Qing walked out of the small dormitory and stood in front of Talker's door. He bent his fingers and knocked twice on the open wooden door. "Let's have dinner together tonight?" Lu Qing smiled when he got the look back. Kai Zongming clicked his tongue. "I thought you forgot about the farewell dinner. I was wondering if I should remind you that the Supreme Seafood Barbecue restaurant in the Gourmet City is very good." Qin Mo put on his gold-rimmed glasses and put his palms together. "I didn't go home today. I didn't go out to fool around. I was waiting for you to treat me. Don't worry, I won't rush to pay the bill. No problem." Mao Yuanxing, who had brought his girlfriend since he entered the university and slept in the dormitory all year round, was lying on the bed. He raised his phone to show that he had gotten the approval from the leader. He was not tall, but he was very bookish. Got Tangwen also raised his head. "When are we leaving?" "Hey, you're not playing games in the dorm anymore?" Lu Qing blurted out, amused. This guy always asked little Ming to bring food for him. "I mainly play mobile games now. Isn't it the same wherever I go?" Tangwen answered matter-of-factly. "That makes a lot of sense. I'm actually speechless." Lu Qing could only take out his phone and look at the lit screen. "Let's wait for another half an hour before leaving." According to Talker's suggestion, let's go to the Supreme Seafood Barbecue restaurant in the Gourmet City. Compared to 3 years ago when they had just arrived, the new campus of Songqing University was no longer so desolate. There was a residential area, a gourmet city, and a few bustling streets. Half an hour later, after walking for more than 20 minutes, everyone from Dorm 302 arrived at the food city. They found the barbecue shop that Kai Zongming had mentioned and ordered a lot of things, including a few cartons of beer. "We'll drink. You and Talker can drink as you please." Qin Mo brushed his hair back and changed from a gentle to a forthright manner. "I'll be the wine commander. You look like you're used to hanging out in nightclubs." Kai Zongming didn't hold back. He took a bottle of Dongrui beer and said, "I'll break my rule today. I can't waste Cheng's treat. Just tell me if you want to drink. You don't have to use me as an excuse." Lu Qing poured himself a cup of buckwheat tea, stood up, looked around and said with some emotion, "I won't say anything about being on the same boat for 100 years. Anyway, it's a rare fate for all of us to be in the same dorm and spend time together for 3 years. I'll probably come back once or twice in my senior year for my dissertation and graduation. Let me use this tea as a substitute for wine to toast to all of you, to the past 3 years, and to the tale of youth that has passed away." "You're getting better at talking, aren't you?" Kai Zongming stood up with a cup full of beer and teased him. "Isn't that obvious? I've been thinking about this for days. I've even revised the draft several times." Lu Qing said self-deprecatingly as he clinked glasses with Zhao Chang and the others. "To our university life," he shouted in a low voice with mixed feelings. He raised the cup and gulped down the tea. Kai Zongming didn't interrupt and finished the beer in his cup with Qin Mo and the others. After sitting down again, Lu Qing peeled off the shell and ate a palm-sized grilled mantis prawn. He refilled his cup and looked at Zhao Chang opposite him. "Chang, your postgraduate recommendation should be confirmed, right?" "Not yet. I'll have to wait until next semester." Zhao Chang looked smug. "But I'm one of the top few. Cheng, if you come back to Songqing in the next 3 or 4 years, feel free to look for me. I should be here." He picked up the beer bottle and filled his cup. He sighed and laughed. "I think I can post a post with the title, 'My Amazing Roommate.'" When he entered school, he was neither tall nor strong and loved to sleep. In the end, he became an inhuman mighty one, and a heavenly son of the era. "Here, let's toast to you. Humans really have to consider the course of history and fate." After finishing his cup, Lu Qing smiled and asked Zhang Jingye, "Model worker, the on-campus enrollment is coming in the second half of the year. You don't seem to be taking the postgraduate entrance exam. What are your plans?" "Plans? I plan to stay in Songqing. You know, I'm from the Northwest. We study software. We have to stay in Beijing, Huahai, Huaqing, Moshang, Gaofen, and Songqing to develop. I've thought about it. It'll be tough at the beginning. It doesn't matter if I work overtime as long as I can learn something." Zhang Jingye had thought about his future and answered sincerely, "Cheng, remember to look for me when you come back to Songqing." At this moment, Chinmo laughed involuntarily. Model worker, I suddenly thought of a joke. In our line of work, the third-rate people write the code, the second-rate people do the architecture, and the first-rate people, the first-rate people do the PowerPoint. Everyone burst into laughter. When they calmed down, Kai Zongming went straight to the point and asked, Model worker, be honest. Is Wu Qian a local of Songqing? No, but she wants to stay in Songqing. Zhang Jingye answered, a little embarrassed. That's even more worth a toast. Lu Qing laughed and picked up his cup. They all love their wives. Watching them gulp down their beer, Qiu Zhigao took the initiative to say, I don't want to take the postgraduate entrance exam either. I plan to leave as soon as I get a good job. Even a big city is fine. After saying a few words, he looked at Lu Cheng and sighed. I'm a little regretful. If I had joined the special training with you in the first year, maybe everything would be different. Now he was neither high nor low. We're still young. As long as we have the heart and are willing to work hard, things will get better sooner or later. Lu Qing raised his cup and comforted him. Old Qiu didn't say more and finished the beer in his cup. In the first few years of college, some people were high-spirited, while others were depressed. Lu Qing turned to look at Tang Wen. He didn't want to expose other people's scars. He smiled and said, God, the esports game industry is so popular now. When you make a lot of money in the future, don't forget us. Tang Wen raised his cup and said shyly, Let's talk about it after I pass the final exam and get enough credits. Otherwise you won't see me again. My dad will beat me to death. They clinked their cups and teased each other. Lu Qing looked at Mao Yuanqing and said, When it comes to the time spent in the dormitory, I'm the last and you're the second last. Let's stop talking and have a toast. What do you think of Qin Mo? Mao Yuanqing asked wittily. After another burst of laughter, Qin Mo stood up and said, I admit it. I agree. Come on. The three of us who don't go home at night will drink a bottle. Cheng, you can do whatever you want. After drinking, Lu Qing glanced at Little Ming with a smile. Talker, we don't have to be so polite, right? Yes, you don't have to be so polite. Lend me your card. Kai Zongming said with disdain. After a round of drinking, they shifted their focus to the barbecue and talked about the interesting things in the past 3 years. For example, Tang Wen forgot the time of the exam, and Lu Qing only showed up in the dormitory before going to bed and chatting for a while. Once the conversation started, the past flew into their minds. A few of them were dead drunk. It wasn't clear if they were sending Lu Qing off or commemorating the 3 years of their youth that they had lost. Cheng, when you become a physical invulnerability expert, I will definitely tell the people around me that this is my roommate. This is my bro. I watched him become stronger step by step. Towards the end, old Qiu stuttered and mumbled. Then he was helped into the dormitory by Zhao Chang, whose face was flushed with blood. The other drunkards were in high spirits and wanted to play a game online. The living room was deserted. Only Lu Qing and Kai Zongming were standing there. Shall we go out for a walk and get some fresh air? Little Ming suggested. Sure. Lu Qing put his hands in his pockets and answered calmly. Kai Zongming turned and walked into the dormitory. He took out 2 small bottles of Red Star Erguo-2 and said self-deprecatingly, Today let me indulge in some alcohol. After leaving the dormitory, they walked through the commercial street and came to the other end of the long bridge. The two went down to the lakeside and found a quiet place. Seeing the wooden bench, Lu Qing subconsciously wanted to wipe it clean before sitting down. However, he quickly realized that he didn't bring any paper towels with him. He shook his head and smiled. He sat down just like that. Kai Zongming sat down beside him. He twisted open the bottle cap and took a sip. He chuckled and said, Cheng, do you know what my impression of you was when I first saw you? Without waiting for Lu Qing to speak, he answered his own question. This guy was so uncouth. His hair looked like it was made when he slept without drying it. It was so unique. Not to mention his clothes and pants. What the hell? Damn, you finally told the truth. Lu Qing couldn't help but laugh. Kai Zongming took another sip of Erguo-2 and said, When you said you wanted to pursue Yanjika, although I encouraged you and taught you skills, I didn't think highly of you at all. It was the same with practicing martial arts. I thought you were wasting your time. He looked at the rippling surface of the lake and said with a sense of emptiness, "In the end, you really did create a miracle. The Longhu Club. That's the Longhu Club. When you were in your first year, you always talked about how the Dragon King was your idol and wanted to watch the Longhu Club's matches. In the end, you just joined them. It's like you're in a TV series." Kai Zoming didn't turn his head. His tone became deep and somewhat erratic. "Chung, you must replace us and fulfill our martial arts dreams. You must become a mighty one with physical invulnerability." "What do you mean by replace you?" Lu Qing asked. Kai Zoming chuckled and his voice became deeper and deeper. "I know very well that even if I can reach the Dan stage in my senior year, I can only fight in the 4th level preliminaries or prepare for the 3rd level North-South regional competition after graduation. In this lifetime, it's almost impossible for me to reach the inhuman stage, let alone physical invulnerability. After 5 years of hard work, I can get a professional 7th pin certificate in 10 years. That's the best development. Maybe I can only understand withdraw when I'm 30. He turned his head and shook his head with dark eyes. "Chung, this is called living, not dreaming." He grabbed the bottle and took another sip. He squeezed out a smile and said, "And I don't like the life of having to fight every week. Not at all. But you're eager to fight every time. You're unusually excited every time we have a conversation." Lu Qing wanted to refute, but he was at a loss for words. Kai Zoming drank another sip of sorghum wine. He leaned back and leaned against the back of the chair. He looked at the starry sky and said, "I went home on the 1st of May. I realized that my dad has aged by almost 10 years. He didn't ask me what job I want in my senior year, but I think I'm a man." Lu Qing was stunned at first but soon understood. An inexplicable and intense sadness welled up in him. Kai Zoming turned his head and looked at him. He said with a cheeky smile, "This might be a good thing. Didn't you always say that you can understand withdraw after a while? I'll go home and rest for a few years. Maybe I'll be able to master some divine skills." At this moment, he saw the change in Lu Cheng's expression. He said in a hoarse voice, "Hey, why are you so jealous?" "I'm not jealous." "Why are you jealous?" "I'm not jealous." "Why are you jealous?" "I'm not King crying." Lu Qing shouted in a hoarse voice. Kai Zoming turned his head and looked at the lake. He announced to himself, "I'm not King crying either." He took a deep breath and picked up the bottle. He looked at Lu Cheng and said with sparkling eyes, "Cheng, you have to go on well. You have to go on well." Lu Qing choked. He picked up another bottle of sorghum wine, unscrewed the cap, and clinked it with Kai Zongming's. Then he raised his head and poured it into his mouth. That strange yet familiar feeling emerged. It was choking and pungent. A day later, in the early morning, Lu Qing put away his stance and exhaled. He didn't leave the lake immediately. Instead, he walked in another direction along the path that was so familiar to him that it seemed to be carved into his bones. That was the place where he picked up the black carp. That was the starting point where he exhausted the enemy in his first real battle. That was the street lamp that witnessed his first kiss with Ke. That was the observation deck that he walked past every time he went on a date. After circling the lake, Lu Cheng returned to the Long Bridge and walked to the martial arts arena. He used the bathroom in the locker room to wash off the sweat from the training. After changing his clothes and putting on his glasses, he cleaned up the things in the locker and locked it again. He left the key in the lock. Coming out of the locker room, Lu Qing saw that Deng Yang, He Zi, and Wang Dali were still focused on the special training and didn't notice him. He smiled and watched for a while. Then he turned around and walked into the honor room. Standing in front of the Feitian Cup, the symbol of last year's national champion, he was stunned for dozens of seconds. Retracting his gaze, Lu Qing slowly looked around, taking in every scene. Only then did he leave the martial arts arena step by step, not bothering He Zi and the others. Following the path that he had walked countless times, he used his feet to remeasure the teaching building, the Long Bridge, the square, and the commercial street. He entered the 7th dormitory, climbed the stairs of the 2nd unit, and returned to the dormitory. Zhao Chong had left the school yesterday. Qiu Zhigao and Zhang Jingye were nowhere to be found. His desk was messy, and his luggage and suitcase were randomly placed. Lu Qing put his laptop into his backpack and finished the final preparations. He took a picture of Yenjika and sent her a message. Then he put on his backpack, pulled the box and walked to the door. When he was about to go out, he suddenly looked back and swept his eyes over the wooden desk, the bed that Zhao Chang always neatly made, the back of Qiu Zhigao's chair that was slightly burnt, and Zhang Jingye's half-open wardrobe. Looking around, Lu Qing silently left the room. He closed the door and closed the room full of memories. The living room outside was empty and quiet. He took a deep look and suddenly turned around. Dragging his suitcase, he left the dormitory and went down the stairs. After a few steps, Lu Qing looked back again, and saw the mottled door and the dim 302 sign. 3 years had passed, and they had aged a lot. Lu Qing exhaled and didn't stop. He carried his suitcase and walked down the stairs. He walked all the way. His feet were replaced by the school bus was replaced by a taxi, and the taxi was replaced by his feet. Finally, he boarded the plane and sat by the window. After chatting with Yenjika for a while, Lu Qing turned off his phone, and felt that the flight had taken off. After a short wait and a quick sprint, the iron bird flew up and rushed into the blue sky. Lu Qing turned his head and saw the city become smaller in his eyes. He saw several landmark buildings. That was the Ocean Aquarium. That was the Songqing Martial Arts Stadium. That was the building with the delicious chiffon cake. That was the mall where he bought the ring for the first time. These gradually became smaller. The eye-catching Zhaoshan Lake and Weishui Lake were reflected in Lu Qing's eyes, making him see illusions and reality. That was the lakeside where the white-haired old man was said to be studied. That was the Songqing University Martial Arts Stadium where his brother-in-law coldly showed up. That was the dormitory where he and Tucker were sarcastic. That was the canteen shared with Ku. That was the locker room where everyone was sad and painful. That was the grandstand where they shouted, "Come again." That was the honor room where hands overlapped each other and pushed the Feitian cup into the cabinet. That was the library where he jumped off the building with a girl in his arms. That was Valentine's Day when the moonlight shone and the fireworks were in full bloom. All of these quickly became smaller and smaller and ended without a trace. The flight soared high in the sky. Lu Qing slowly retracted his gaze and leaned back in his chair. He closed his eyes and silently said the words that he had been suppressing in his heart. Goodbye, Songqing. End of part. Chapter 539. It was the end of June in Huaqing, hot and humid. Walking in the city felt like walking in a steamer, which was extremely uncomfortable. Although Lu Qing could use ice force to dispel the heat, he couldn't change the humidity of the surrounding air. His skin felt sticky and his pores couldn't breathe properly. He couldn't wait to find a place to take a cold shower. A long-haired girl in a white shirt, light gray suit, and sandals turned around and introduced. This place is designed with one apartment per staircase, so privacy is well protected. Also, it's not far from our Longhu Club. It's about a 20-minute drive. Her name was Amen, and she was a staff member sent by the Longhu Club to welcome Lu Qing at the airport. Her skin had a healthy luster. Her facial features were gentle and pretty, and the corners of her eyes were naturally curved. Not bad. Lu Qing carried his luggage and dragged his suitcase. He looked around, nodded slightly, and followed Amen into the staircase. He felt a cool breeze. Amen pressed the button for the 6th floor, and looked at the famous heavenly sun of the era with a gentle smile. The club is responsible for the utilities and other expenses. Mr. Lu, you don't have to worry about it. If you encounter any problems, you can look for the property management. If they can't solve it, give me a call. As they spoke, the elevator stopped at the 6th floor. The area outside the door wasn't small. There were sofas, round tables, bonsai, and other things like a waiting room. The interior design of the house was cold and hard, with black, gray, and silver as the main colors, giving it a modern industrial vibe. It was more than 200 square meters with 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a dining room, a living room, and a clean and tidy kitchen. The layout was quite spacious and didn't feel cramped at all. I live alone. There's no need to make it so big, right? Lu Qing laughed out loud. He had originally thought that it was just a 2-bedroom apartment of about 80 square meters. Amen smiled faintly. Everyone is the same. You can't make it special. Everyone. Lu Cheng's heart skipped a beat, and he asked with interest. It's the inhuman mighty ones in the club's reserve team. Almond's eyes twinkled, and she replied with a friendly attitude. But there aren't many who still live in this area. Some bought their own houses and moved out. Some are in other cities, following other teams, competing in the second or third level professional competitions. Some are older and have switched to management, being in charge of businesses related to the club. Oh, Mr. Liu, do you know how to drive? Yes, but I don't have a license. Lu Qing didn't try to hide it. Then there will be a driver coming to pick you up tomorrow morning at 8:15 a.m. at the southeast gate. I will ask him to contact you in advance. Almond walked to the window and pointed at the artificial garden outside. There's a specially partitioned hidden area. You don't have to run too far for your morning exercise. The facilities here are quite complete. Lu Qing exclaimed in satisfaction. As the top martial arts force in the country, how could the club not know your needs? These are all carefully selected. Almond smiled and extended her right hand. Let's get to know each other again. Almond, I graduated 2 years ago and am a member of the Longhu Club's assistant team. You can only have a personal assistant after you reach physical invulnerability. As for now, the assistant team is in charge of everything. Lu Qing politely reached out and shook her hand gently. In other words, I belong to the club's reserve team? That's right. Excluding you, there are currently 5 powerhouses in the reserve team. 2 of them live in the Sky Capital Garden. You'll be able to see them tomorrow morning. Almond answered honestly. 5 Inhumans? This doesn't include those who have gone to other teams for actual combat training, or those who are old and have no hope of reaching physical invulnerability. The number of Inhumans in the Longhu Club is terrifying. No wonder the Ice God sect, Haishi sect, and others formed the Wuyue Club to barely contend with them. Lu Qing was speechless. Almond continued to introduce other situations until she received a message on her phone. She took a look and exclaimed softly, "It's so late. The train is about to stop. So is the bus. It's all that plane's fault for being delayed for so many hours." She looked up again and tried her best to smile naturally. "Mr. Liu, it's getting late. You should get some rest. If there's anything, you can ask me on WeChat or over the phone." All right. Lu Qing couldn't wait for her to leave. Almond left behind her keys, electronic card, and other items. She waved and walked towards the door. Just as she was about to open the door, she suddenly remembered something. She turned around and asked, "Mr. Liu, will we arrange for cleaning staff to come here regularly to clean and tidy up? How many days do you want them to come here? What's the schedule?" "Once every 2 days, even when I'm not around," Lu Qing said after some consideration. "Got it." Almond changed into her sandals and said goodbye with a smile. She closed the door. After exiting the elevator, her reserved footsteps gradually quickened. In the end, she was running like the wind. Finally, she caught the last train and found her seat. Almond heaved a long sigh of relief. Her whole body relaxed. However, after she bent down and massaged her aching calves, she suddenly felt a surge of sadness. During work, there were cars and the people she interacted with were all experts with extremely high incomes. It was as though she was living in the glamorous upper class. After work, she was no longer Assistant Almond. She squeezed into the subway, ate fast food, and shared a room with others. She lived in a small space with only a bed, a table, and a cupboard. The Longhu Club offered a decent salary for an ordinary assistant. However, in a big city, all she could do was survive and slowly earn money. When will this kind of life end? In a spacious room, Lu Qing recorded the surroundings with his phone and made a live broadcast for his wife. "How is it? Not bad, right?" he asked with a little pride. On the other side of the screen, Yin Zheka, dressed in a white training suit, put down the milk. She pursed her lips and smiled. "The layout is okay. It's just that the decoration style is too cold. When you come over during winter break, we'll go look for a house. In the next 5 or 10 years, we'll most likely be living in Huaqing. The sooner we buy, the better. We'll have our own home sooner," Lu Qing said, half tempting and half letting his imagination run wild. "Why do you have to wait for me to buy?" Yen Zheka blinked, her dimples showing. "This kind of thing has to be decided by the head of the household." Lu Qing answered without hesitation. This was a lesson learned from the mistakes of others. In the end, his father made the final decision on the house. His mother was generally satisfied with it. However, nothing is perfect. Every time this happened, his father would be nagged. On the other hand, the decoration basically reflected his mother's intentions. Although she regretted it later on, she couldn't find anyone to complain to. She could only say a few words occasionally. Yenjika didn't understand this roundabout way of talking. She listened with a smile and nodded seriously. I don't trust your aesthetic standards. What's wrong with my aesthetic standards? My little fairy is so pretty. Lu Qing took advantage of the opportunity and started flirting with her skillfully. You're just a fool. Yenjika couldn't help but smile and turn her head to look to the side. Then Cuckoo, are you considered a wise man who makes mistakes? Lu Qing teased her with a smile. Yenjika looked around and saw that Aunt Du had gone to the garage. She raised her chin and refused to play along. No way. My brother Qing is so awesome. I have good taste. A wise man like me won't make a mistake. Lu Qing listened with a smile. After flirting with her for a while, he changed the topic and said, I heard from the assistant that the club specially assigned a chef to make Xing province dishes for me. In the future, I can eat there morning, afternoon and night. I won't have to work so hard when I come back. Don't you like to cook? Yenjika covered her mouth and snickered. What I like to do is to cook with my little fairy. Lu Qing chuckled. If I'm alone, it takes me 2 hours to cook, half an hour to wash the dishes and 10 minutes to eat. What a waste. That's true. Yenjika nodded in agreement. Before she could finish, she rolled her eyes and blurted out. You eat so much. How can 10 minutes be enough? You liar. Lu Qing was speechless for a moment. After a long time he replied, I'm just giving an example. Understand the spirit, understand the spirit. At this moment, Aunt Du came in and urged the girl to change. Yenjika hurriedly drank the last mouthful of milk and ended the video call. She walked up to the second floor with light steps. She didn't have class in the morning, but she had to go to the classroom at 10 to discuss the group report. Lu Qing called his mother and reported the situation of his residence. After that, he washed up and lay on the bed. I'm in Huaqing. Before he went to bed, he sent a message to Fatty Jiang. This guy is studying in Huaqing University in Guangnan. I'm back in Xioshan. Jiang Fei replied with a cunning smile. Just kidding. I'm waiting for you to treat me to a good meal. When? I'm leaving the day after tomorrow. Let's talk about it tomorrow. I haven't reported yet, so I'm not sure about the club's arrangements. Lu Qing didn't promise casually. After ending the chat and saying good night to Yenjika, he locked the phone screen and let the master bedroom fall into darkness. There was silence everywhere. A faint light shone in from the window, bringing peace and loneliness. It wasn't that Lu Qing hadn't been to foreign lands before, but except for Xioshan and Songcheng, he knew clearly that they were only temporary stays and he would leave soon. This time, he would take root here, germinate here and grow here. In the next 5, 10 or 20 years he would belong to this city. He lacked a sense of belonging, and the future was long. Lu Qing felt inexplicably sentimental and melancholy. His heart was filled with an unreal feeling. Is this my hometown for the rest of my life? He had a similar feeling when he first arrived in Songcheng, but there was more than one person in the dormitory. The liveliness soon diluted everything. Now he was alone. Alone in a foreign land as a stranger. The next morning, Lu Qing woke up on time and went to the specially partitioned field. He found a relatively secluded place to train. At 8:10 a.m., he put on an ordinary backpack and went to the southeast gate of Sky Capital Garden. He saw the silver-gray MPV that came to pick him up. He saw Amen waiting at the door with obvious eye bags. The MPV was very spacious. 2 rows of seats were placed opposite each other, separated by a small refrigerator, a bar and a table. A man and a woman were sitting opposite him. Their eyes swept over Lu Qing as if they were real. Let me introduce you. From now on, you will be teammates in the reserve team, Amen said with a bright smile. Chapter 540. Amen had put on light makeup and wore a one-piece dress. Her professional demeanor exuded a sense of freshness and elegance. After sitting beside Lu Cheng, she pointed at the man opposite her and said, "Mr. Yu Wangyuan, senior fourth pin." Sitting there, Yu Wangyuan looked like half a mountain. His loose shirt was stretched tight by his muscles. However, his naturally round face added a lot of gentleness to his tough temperament. Following which, Amen looked at the remaining woman with a smile. Ms. Lu Xiaofei, newly promoted fourth pin expert this year. Lu Xiaofei wore a loose dark t-shirt. Her facial features weren't outstanding, but her eyes were full of heroic spirit. She had a charm that was different from other women. She looked younger than Yu Wangyuan, about 24 or 25 years old. "Hello." After the introduction, Lu Cheng greeted them politely. Just as Amen was about to introduce Lu Cheng's identity, Yu Wangyuan smiled and said, "There's no need for introductions. We all know who you are. We aren't old antiques who don't know how to surf the internet. How can we not know the heavenly son of the era?" As he spoke, he stood up and extended his right hand to Lu Cheng. "I graduated from a martial arts school and spent a few years in the military. I just joined the club not long ago. Longhu and the military indeed have a close relationship." Lu Cheng left his seat thoughtfully and shook hands with Yu Wangyuan. He felt that Yu Wangyuan's calluses were as thick as steel. Lu Xiaofei sat steadily, cupped her fist and bowed. "I rose from Longhu's beginner martial arts school. You probably haven't heard of me. We will be teammates in the future." Lu Cheng obviously couldn't say that he hadn't heard of her before, so he could only say this out of courtesy. He only knew of one inhuman in Longhu Club, the top fourth pin Tu Zheng. Tu Zheng could exchange more than 10 moves with a physical invulnerability mighty one. When Longhu Club was in a predicament where 2 or 3 main players were injured and couldn't fight, he would act as a firefighter. Hence, Lu Cheng had seen a few of his matches. The traffic jam from Sky Capital Garden to Longhu Club in the suburbs wasn't too bad. After 23 minutes, the car arrived at its destination. Throughout the entire process, Yu Wangyuan and Lu Xiaofei were polite and distant. They only briefly talked about the situation of the reserve team. Lu Cheng wasn't surprised by this. It wasn't easy to meet someone like Little Ming who was so friendly with others. Amen, on the other hand, tried her best to liven up the atmosphere and shared some unimportant gossip. The main building of the Longhu Club was only 5 stories high, but it occupied an extremely large area, almost as big as 10 martial arts stadiums combined. There were 2 horizontal plaques on both sides of the entrance, with the words "Dragon Coiling" on a black background and "Tiger Crouching" on the other. Other than that, there were no other decorations. Looking at it from afar, one could vaguely see the sparkling lake in the distance. Lu Cheng had just gotten out of the car, and before he could speak to Amen, Yu Wangyuan and Lu Xiaofei, he saw a familiar figure rushing in from the door. It was Mr. Zhang, who wasn't wearing a suit and was only wearing a shirt. The Mr. Zhang who had finalized the terms of the contract with Lu Cheng. I found out later that his name is Zhang Shouyan. Seeing an old friend in a foreign land put Lu Cheng's mood at ease. He waved with a smile. "You're finally here. Follow me in first. Empress Luo wants to see you." Zhang Shouyan pushed his gold-rimmed spectacles. He didn't have the time to exchange pleasantries with Yu Wangyuan and the rest. He gestured for Lu Cheng to follow him as he turned and walked towards the door. "Empress Luo Ning Zitong?" The thought flashed through Lu Cheng's mind. He quickened his pace and caught up with Zhang Shouyan in the blink of an eye. They entered through the door side by side. Empress Luo Ning Zitong was 42 years old this year. In her prime she had held 2 titles. Due to her ghostly movements, she was revered as the Ghost King. She didn't like this title, so she named herself Empress Luo. After more than 10 years of perseverance, she finally got what she wanted. When people mentioned Ning Zitong, the first thing they would think of was Empress Luo. She was the successor of the Longhu Club, the one who truly laid the foundation for this place to become one of the top forces. Even though she was still participating in professional competitions, she was already the de facto leader of the club, equivalent to the sect master of the Shangqing sect or the abbot of Daxing Temple. Seeing Lu Cheng's back disappear through the door, Lu Xiaofei didn't hide it from Amen. She lowered her voice and asked, "How do you feel?" Yu Wangyuan pondered for a few seconds and said, He seems easy to talk to and polite, but in reality, that's not necessarily the case. At such a young age, with such strength, which one of them isn't young and arrogant? Lu Xiaofei muttered to herself. Tap, tap, tap. Zhang Xiuyan led Lu Qing forward and asked in a seemingly casual manner. Do you have a specialized legal advisor? Yeah, my senior sister introduced him. Lu Qing answered calmly. Before signing the contract with the Longhu Club, he had asked his senior sister to find a reliable lawyer for help. Shi Yuejian directly introduced Lin Qiukong, who was from the Ice God sect, to him. After that, both parties were very satisfied. Even though Lu Qing had to pay a hefty sum, he really got what he paid for. He picked out all the unfavorable terms, leaving the Longhu Club speechless. They could only make changes. Zhang Xiuyan nodded slightly, stopped at the elevator door, and pressed the up button. Do you have anyone to help you with your business matters? Not at the moment, Lu Qing smiled. When the elevator door opened, Zhang Xiuyan stepped in and said thoughtfully, You can let the club handle this first. You haven't reached physical invulnerability, so there aren't many such matters. There's no need to specially find someone. Moreover, we only take a 10% commission. Lu Qing nodded. Then draft a contract for me to take a look. Sure. Zhang Xiuyan heaved a sigh of relief. He walked into the corridor on the 5th floor and came to an office with a mahogany door. He knocked 3 times rhythmically. Come in. A voice as clear as spring water sounded from within. At first, it sounded like an 18 or 19-year-old. However, upon closer inspection, one could feel a hint of maturity. Zhang Xiuyan turned the doorknob and pushed open the door. He said with a smile, Empress Luo Lu Qing is here. Behind the dark red desk, a woman with black hair in a bun looked up, revealing a face that was both happy and angry at the same time. She seemed to be of foreign or ethnic descent. Her facial features were delicate and elegant. She was beautiful and moving. Time hadn't left a mark on her face, only leaving behind an air of elegance. Even though Lu Qing was used to seeing fairies, his eyes lit up. Empress Luo looks better in real life than on TV. No wonder she could change her title. It's all because of her looks, as expected of a famous beauty of the previous generation. While he was silently complaining, Ning Zitong smiled faintly and said to Zhang Xiuyan, Sorry to bother you. Sorry for the trouble. Go and do your own thing. Yes. Zhang Xiuyan replied excitedly. He left the room in high spirits as though he was on steroids and closed the door. Hello, Senior Ning. Hello, Senior Empress Luo. Lu Qing had almost forgotten the rule that martial artists with titles had to be addressed by their titles. Ning Zitong spat and smiled unpleasantly. Senior? Am I very old? Call me sister. Sister Ning. Do you understand? Lu Qing was dumbfounded. Senior, where did your dignity go? Although we can be considered to be of the same generation as my master. Ning Zitong smiled and said, This is courtesy. Do you understand? Women are all obsessed with age. Ko often complains that she's no longer a 17 or 18-year-old girl. Lu Cheng's thoughts drifted as he followed her advice. Hello, Sister Ning. That's more like it. Ning Zitong put down the fountain pen that could turn into a hidden weapon at any moment. She stood up gracefully and said with a smile, Come with me to meet those guys. After all, you're our quasi-physical invulnerability expert. Meeting the other physical invulnerability experts? Was he going to meet the Dragon King? Lu Qing suddenly felt a little excited. He didn't notice that Empress Luo had left her seat and walked to his side. The sweet and clear scent of perfume entered his nose. He came back to his senses and saw Empress Luo's long bohemian dress that reached her knees. Noticing Lu Cheng's gaze, Ning Zitong laughed self-deprecatingly. When I was young, I liked simple and elegant dresses the most. Now I've fallen in love with bright colors. Yeah. Lu Qing didn't know how to continue. He changed the topic and asked, Ning Qian's sister Ning, are we meeting the Dragon King and the rest? Yes. Ning Zitong opened the door and led the way out. She said with a smile, They're not like me. They're easy to talk to and get along with. However, once you get a feel for them, they're not particularly weird. For someone who can achieve physical invulnerability at such a young age, the first thing that distinguishes them is their pride. Secondly, they're quite self-centered. Tricking the Dragon King is right. Lu Qing listened silently and followed half a step behind. Turning into the corridor, they entered the room labeled conference room. The first thing Lu Qing saw was the broad shoulders and tall back of the Dragon King. He was standing by the window opposite, looking out. He wasn't exactly a burly man, but he gave off a soul-stirring sense of majesty. To the left of the conference table sat a giant. Even if he didn't stand up, one could imagine his muscular figure of over 2 meters. This was the other first Pin Mighty One of the Longhu Club, Optimus Prime Long Zhen. Even though he was tall and strong, his flexibility and footwork weren't inferior to the others. Long Zhen's skin was tanned to bronze. He didn't have a single strand of hair on his head, which was as smooth as a mirror. His 2 thick eyebrows looked like they were outlined by ink, giving him a ferocious look. He was squinting his beady eyes and sizing up Lu Qing with a half-smile. Opposite Long Zhen was a girl with short hair. Her skin was tanned, and the contours of her face were gentle. However, there was a hidden fierceness that made it hard to look straight at her. This is my disciple, Guojie. She achieved physical invulnerability 3 years ago. She's still a third pin. Ning Zitong extended her hand and introduced. Her nickname is Martial Arts Fanatic. You can roughly imagine her personality. Just like now. Even though she's gentle and quiet, I'm sure she's muttering in her heart that Master is so bored to meet Lu Qing. If I have the time, I might as well go to the volcano laboratory and practice my physical invulnerability secret arts. Guojie seemed to have been exposed. She helplessly shouted in a low voice. Master! Ning Zitong smiled and stopped bullying her disciple. She pointed at Long Zhen and said, This fatty may look fierce, but other than his girly mouth he's actually a very humorous and kind-hearted person. Of course, his ego is also ridiculously strong. He's always claimed that he's number 1, number 2 and number 3. He can't stand the Dragon King and challenges him every few days. Don't be surprised if you see him bruised and swollen, or being carried to the emergency room. Empress Luo, I don't like what you're saying. What do you mean my ego is ridiculously strong? Long Zhen opened his beady eyes and nagged. Lu Yan is our coach and member. He's from your master's generation. He's been practicing martial arts for more than 40 years, but he still hasn't matured and is extremely arrogant. He didn't come today, but he said that he'll meet him when Lu Qing makes the great leap. The second half of Long Zhen's sentence was directed at Lu Qing. Then he continued. I claim to be number 1 in heaven and number 2 in earth, while I'm number 3. However, Lu Yan has always said, I'm the only one apart from heaven. Look whose ego is stronger. Him. Lu Qing almost burst out laughing. However, he's not the one with the strongest ego. The one with the strongest ego is the one behind him. Guess what? Long Zhen pointed at Dragon King Qin Shi Tao with his chin. He doesn't even care about God. He's the only one in the world. You don't have the will to rule. That's how you'll be for the rest of your life. A deep, magnetic voice sounded. Dragon King turned around. He was handsome, with sharp eyebrows, bright eyes, and a mature aura. Lu Qing was agitated. He opened his mouth, but didn't know what to say. All right. There's a press conference later. Lu Qing will be joining our Longhu Club. Other than me, there's another person to hold the fort. Who's going? Ning Zitong didn't raise her voice. Martial arts fanatic Guojie lowered her head and practiced her swordsmanship with her fingers. Long Zhen was deep in thought, and seemed to be struggling. Dragon King Qin Shi Tao put his hands behind his back and walked step by step towards the door of the conference room. Silence filled the room. Before he left, Qin Shi Tao didn't turn back. He said in a deep voice, Let's go. P.S. This chapter is a little long, so it's late. Looking for recommendations on Monday. Chapter 541. In the large conference room on the first floor of the Longhu Club, the invited media set up their cameras and focused on the 3 people on stage. Empress Luo, Dragon King Qin Shi Tao, and Lu Qing had all changed into navy blue uniforms. They were elegant, dignified, and full of energy, displaying the different styles of martial artists. Lu Qing, why did you choose to join the Longhu Club and not stay in the Wuyue Club? Everyone knows that you are from the Ice God sect. A reporter got permission and stood up to ask. Lu Cheng was prepared for this. He smiled calmly and said, Longhu has always been my home team since I started watching professional matches. Also, I have to thank my old master. He told me not to be constrained by sectarian views. The Longhu Club is open, tolerant, and beyond the individual level. I thought about this answer for a few days and revised it several times. Coach Yan also reviewed and modified it. Cough cough. In front of the TV screen, Geezer cursed while holding a bottle of wine. Is this brat trying to push all the blame onto me? If it were in ancient times, this kind of disciple would be hung up in public. Only I, your master, have a tough body and strong strength, so I can take it. If you don't understand the unique skills of the restriction sect in the future, I will teach you a lesson. The reporter was very satisfied with his answer. He wanted to take this opportunity to start a conversation about whether the sect's organizational structure was not in line with modern society. However, the host was quick and didn't give him a chance to mess things up. He picked the next person to ask. Dragon King, there was a rumor saying that you personally called to invite Lu Cheng. Is that true? Asked a short-haired female reporter with a China satellite TV tag on her chest. Chen Qitao's expression didn't change. It's true. Then what made you do this? As far as I know, you have never looked at anyone so favorably before. Asked the short-haired female reporter excitedly. Because he has enough potential and his Emperor Yan force is not bad, said Chen Qitao calmly. Then he raised his hand and gestured for a similar question to be typed. However, none of the reporters who liked to play the devil's advocate raised an opinion. At this moment in the Longhu Club forum, a plumber eating mushrooms wrote. Pounding the ground laughing expression. The Dragon King is a good senior, but he's definitely not a good opponent. When Lu Cheng has enough potential, the Dragon King will cherish him. But when Lu Cheng turns his potential into reality and catches up with the Dragon King, I bet that the Dragon King will try his best to suppress him and not let him make a comeback. You're slandering my Dragon King again. Pig Riding Knight said with disdain. How can you call it black? I'm a diehard supporter of the Dragon King. Everyone knows his character very well. I just made a deduction based on the actual situation. A plumber eating mushrooms replied comically. To worship someone, you have to worship even their flaws. I'm such a narrow-minded person. Okamoto's fan immediately mocked. You're just a fan who's naturally black in the depths of his heart. Bah, if Lu Cheng advances by leaps and bounds in the future and threatens Dragon King's position in the club, how will you feel? A plumber eating mushrooms asked, spreading out his hands. I'll be a little unhappy. After all, my original name is the Dragon King. However, the Dragon King definitely won't be surpassed. Even if he falls behind for a moment, he can still catch up. All these years, hasn't he been performing such miracles for us? Back then, the warrior sage was so abnormal that almost all the mighty ones were in despair. But the Dragon King didn't. Unparalleled Dragon King answered, living up to his nickname. Wonton Seller said while looking at her fingers, I'll be very conflicted. Their discussion on this matter didn't last long. The press conference came to an end. Lu Cheng completed a group photo with Empress Luo and the Dragon King, officially joining the Longhu Club. In just a few minutes, the headlines on Weibo were published. Lu Cheng chooses Huadu. The Dragon King has a successor. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. The martial arts sections of all the major portals uploaded similar content. The battle between the heavenly sons of the era has been decided. Joining the Longhu Club. A new starting point. A win-win decision. Breaking the prejudice of sections. Modern martial artist Lu Cheng. In the forum after seeing the group photo, above the sky, a girl who loved rock and roll said, Friends on the tree can come down now. There's no need to watch anymore. Lu Cheng has indeed joined the club. Everyone slide down in an orderly manner. Don't cause trampling damage. Ha 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 ha. I'm so happy, so happy. My idol has joined my favorite force. Said Brahmin, who was in her third year of middle school. Let's add a friendly link to Lu Cheng's fan forum. We're all family from now on. Brahmin, have you been infected with silly Nightfall stupidity? Why are you laughing like that? Joked Unparalleled Dragon King. What? You don't know? That silly child just rolled off the bed laughing. Luckily, we're at home and not at school. Brahman puffed up her chest and raised her head, indicating that she wasn't on the same level as a certain someone. While the two forums were cheering, Lu Qing finished his interview with a few media outlets. He watched as the Dragon King left majestically and followed Ning Zitong to the restaurant. "What's the volcano laboratory?" he asked curiously. Guojia, the martial arts fanatic, and Qin Qitao, the Dragon King, both mention this term. In ancient times, after reaching the physical invulnerability stage of the fire sect, one would choose to train in an environment similar to the depths of a volcano. However, it was full of danger. Even a physical invulnerability mighty one wouldn't be able to withstand an accident. Ning Zitong briefly explained, "The volcano laboratory uses the power of modern technology to imitate the conditions in the depths of a volcano. Although the actual effect isn't as exaggerated, the intensity can be adjusted automatically. It's a godly weapon that aids training. Once you're close to the physical invulnerability stage, you can use it. As for the Ice Sect Environmental Laboratory, we don't have one in our club, but the military does." Lu Qing was excited. He felt like he had come into contact with a different world. As they spoke, Ning Zitong led him into the restaurant. It was already past lunchtime, but there were various steamers on display for the convenience of the mighty one. "You'll be eating here in the future. Try it. Huaqing's breakfast snacks are pretty good." Ning Zitong smiled and pointed ahead. Lu Qing looked around and saw a notice posted on the wall. Breakfast was from 7 to 9, lunch was from 12 to 2, and dinner was from 5:30 to 7:30. If there were leftovers, they would be kept warm. This allowed the mighty one, who was a glutton, to eat more and less until the club closed at 8. After busying himself for a while, Lu Qing, who hadn't had breakfast yet, placed 3 stacks of steamers on the table. First, he took a picture of Yenjika. Opening the steamer, he picked up a crab roe bun and swallowed it in a few bites. Satisfied, he exclaimed, "Not bad." It wasn't any worse than the ones in Huaqing restaurant. After stuffing himself with food for a while and filling up half his stomach, Lu Qing deliberated and asked, "Sister Ning, what's the club's usual schedule like? Are there holidays?" "Holidays?" Ning Zitong sneered. Her eyebrows relaxed like a blooming flower, revealing a hint of maturity. "We're all adults. We're all mighty ones known as monsters. Who doesn't have a personality? Why are there so many rules? The club's daily schedule is very flexible. As long as you don't miss the scheduled matches, you can come and go as you please. It's all up to you. However, there are all kinds of facilities here. There are specialized trainers, so it's definitely better than training on your own. Also, the reserve team will have a session with a physical invulnerability mighty one every week. It's from 3 to 5 in the afternoon on Monday. Unless it's something important, I suggest you try your best to attend. If you need to take time off, tell the assistant team in advance. You don't want to waste food and the chef's efforts. Who knows that every grain on the plate is hard work? Phew, that's fine. I'll plan which matches I'm going to participate in. When I'm free, I should be able to make a trip to America every month and stay there for 4 to 5 days. When I'm busy, it might even take up to 2 to 3 months. But I can make use of the time to stay at home for a few days." Lu Qing's mind raced as he made plans. Before he knew it, he had swept away all the dishes on the table, such as abalone juice and chicken feet, white sugar cakes and shumai. There was no need to tidy up. Ning Zitong brought him to the training area of the reserve team. It was in the northwest area of the first floor. "You'll get to know them today. The main thing is to practice the Fire Sect's dance stage chapter. Try to get a basic grasp of it within a month," Ning Zitong said casually as they walked. "The club has other secret arts, such as the dark sect's flickering light and passing shadow. I'm the best at that. Also, there's a martial art that combines the incomplete golden bell shield and immortal flesh. Longjun is pretty good at it. Once you've mastered the Fire Sect's dance stage chapter, you can come into contact with similar things and broaden your horizons." "All right." Lu Qing nodded happily. "I feel like there's a lot to learn. How exciting. This is one of the joys of practicing martial arts." After walking for a few minutes, Ning Zitong stopped in front of a huge door. She took more than 10 seconds to put on an elegant and faint smile. Then, she pushed her hand forward and walked in elegantly. She said to the martial artists around the area, "Everyone, come over here for a moment." Yu Wangyuan and the rest retracted their stance and greeted respectfully. "Empress Luo." They gathered in front of the beautiful, dignified Ning Zitong. Lu Qing noticed that Lu Xiaofei, Yu Wangyuan, and the rest were clearly slower by half a step. They stood behind a martial artist in a clustered manner, and this martial artist was someone he recognized. Tu Zheng, who was close to physical invulnerability. His forehead was full, and his square face looked like it was carved by a knife. He was masculine and fierce. His eyes were neither big nor small. His pupils were dark and fiery. Ning Zitong smiled faintly and said to Tu Zheng and Lu Cheng, "I won't introduce the two of you. You should know each other, right?" "Yes." Tu Zheng laughed heartily. He looked at Lu Cheng and said, "I heard that you were coming, but I only confirmed it today. I was supposed to have a welcoming feast tonight to welcome you back. However, I didn't know when you were coming and was arranged to do something else. How about tomorrow night? Let's get together tomorrow night and get to know each other better. What do you think?" "Sure," Lu Qing replied with a smile. He wasn't an introvert, but he wasn't arrogant either. He knew how to get along well with the people around him so that he wouldn't be troubled by trivial matters. Chapter 542. As a physical invulnerability expert, Ning Zitong didn't stay for long. After a brief introduction, she left the northwest area of the first floor. Lu Qing roughly recognized the few members of the reserve team. Excluding Yu Wangyuan and Lu Xiaofei, who lived in the Sky Capital Garden, and the team leader, Tu Zheng, who occasionally represented the Longhu Club in top-level professional competitions, the remaining two were a man and a woman. The man's surname was Sun, and his name was Jianlin. He had a medium build and was strong and stocky. There was nothing special about his features, and he had a typical face. However, as an inhuman mighty one, he had a hidden glow in his eyes. His manly charm was born from extreme confidence, and he wasn't much inferior to the average handsome guy. The woman's name was Jialu. Her eyes were bright and watery, but they didn't contain any gentleness. She was used to standing at the side and looking at everyone like a bystander. It was as though she didn't care about anything, as though everything she saw and heard was nothing more than a reality TV show. According to Empress Luo's introduction, the five of them were all below 30. The oldest was Tu Zheng, who was 28 years old, and had high hopes of achieving physical invulnerability. The youngest was Jialu, who was 24 years old. She had broken through to the inhuman stage before the Chinese New Year, and was transferred from the Dan stage group to the reserve team. The rest were Yu Wangyuan and Sun Jianlin, who were 27 years old and had obtained their 4th pin certificates 2 years ago. Lu Xiaofei was 25 years old, and had just passed the ranking event in April. Each of them had the potential to fight for the top 2 spots in the major sects of the Wuyue Club. However, the Longhu Club had 5 of them. Apart from that, there were a few who were at the same level as them. They were following other teams that they had close ties with to fight in the 2nd or 3rd level professional competitions. Every February or March, the core team would reconsider who would go out to train, who would stay to break through to the physical invulnerability stage or strengthen their foundation, and who would be assigned tasks to eliminate unfamiliarity when they were transferred to management or the army. The number of Inhumans below 30 clearly showed the strength of the Longhu Club. They were definitely worthy of being at the top. Lu Qing exchanged a few pleasantries with them. Then, under Tu Zheng's guidance, he confirmed his personal resting room and entered the Dan stage training room. He freely pondered over the visualization diagrams of the fire sect, detailed explanations of moves, and notes. Every member of the reserve team had their own personal resting room in the northeast area of the first floor. It was a small room of about 70 square meters. From 9:30 to 11 a.m., Lu Qing didn't do any training. Instead, he roughly skimmed through the fire sect's Dan chapters. He had a general understanding of the fire sect. They didn't require no training, but there were many repeaters and even more unsuitable ones. And they didn't need not practice. Practice, they as. But there were many repeaters and even more there were many unsuitable. Yes. They had no need. Ts. Practice, practice, practice. Practice. After this round of sorting, Lu Qing confirmed that there were only 23 dance stage unique skills left to practice. Some of them were the application techniques of force. Lifting his head from the pile of old papers, he picked up his phone. Glancing at the time, he walked out of the training room and returned to his personal resting room. He sat on the sofa and video chatted with Ku. In his plan, the time between 11 a.m. and 12:30 a.m. was reserved for foreign lovers. Unless there was something extremely important, they would do it regardless of rain or shine. It was summertime in Connecticut, America. It was between 10 p.m. and 11 p.m. Yinjika had the most free time of the day. It was the sweet time before bed. However, there were always exceptions. Due to the delay of a member of her team, she was still a little short of submitting her report tomorrow. She estimated that it would take another 2 hours. She didn't mention it. Instead, she excitedly video chatted with Lu Qing. They talked about his first experience in the Longhu Club, and the few mighty ones with physical invulnerability. Yeah, no matter how big the world is, communicating with Cheng is the most important thing. At most, I'll stay up late. I'm Heroine Yen who has mastered the wholeness formula. As for the report, I'll tell Cheng when the video is about to end. That way he won't keep worrying and nagging. At the reserve team's practice field in the Northwest District, there were various facilities. Leader 2, Lu Qing left the training room at 11 a.m. and returned to his personal resting room. Yu Wangyuan, who had a round face, came back from his stroll outside. He lowered his voice and said to Tu Zheng, "It's only been slightly more than an hour." Although he said that he controlled his voice, it was just for show. He didn't use secret voice transmission, nor did he control his voice to be as soft as a mosquito's. Lu Xiaofei, Sun Jianlin, and Jia Lu were paying attention. When they heard that, they slowed down their movements and listened quietly. Tu Zheng's lips curled. He laughed and said, "He's the heavenly son of China. Maybe an hour of practice is equivalent to a day's worth of practice for us? He has his talent, and we have our hard work. There's no need to be envious. All right, let's continue with our practice. If there's anything you can't figure out, let's discuss it together. Oh right, I have something to do in the afternoon. You guys can arrange it yourselves." His expression relaxed and his moves became more natural. At 12:30 p.m., Lu Qing heard that his little fairy had to stay up late to report. He was angry, amused, touched, and heartbroken at the same time. However, he didn't harp on this matter. According to the experience that little Ming had imparted to him, he had to make the girl feel like she was putting in effort from time to time. Otherwise, things wouldn't last long. After giving a few reminders, Lu Qing came to the dining room. Seeing that there was a new Xing province cuisine district here, he took a basin, no, a bigger bowl, and filled it with 20 kgs of steamed beef vermicelli, stir-fried shredded pork with ginger, and other dishes. Lastly, he filled a big bowl of bitter bamboo shoots with meat slices soup. The taste of bitter bamboo shoots wasn't Lu Cheng's favorite, but the soup it made was refreshing and delicious, appetizing and relieving the heat. The meat slices were tender and delicious. Dipping it in the water, it was delicious and went well with rice. Other than that, he also went to the Guangnan cuisine district to get a roast goose. It had sweet skin and fragrant meat. It was fat but not greasy. After eating and drinking to his heart's content, Lu Qing took a bowl of mung bean sugar water and drank it leisurely to get rid of the taste of meat and vegetables in his mouth. He suddenly thought of something. He took out his phone and sent a message to Fatty Jiang. "Do you want to meet tonight?" "Yeah." Jiang Fei replied quickly. "I'm just waiting to rip you off." "What time?" "About 6:30. Let's meet at the school gate. Send me your location." Lu Qing picked up a slice of watermelon and took a bite. Fatty Jiang should be at the university town, right? After confirming this, Lu Qing wanted to inform Amen via WeChat, so that the kitchen didn't have to prepare his dinner. However, after thinking for a while, he chose to call the office of the assistant team directly. "Hello, you are?" asked a man with a strong Guangnan accent. "I'm Lu Qing." Lu Qing gave his identity succinctly. Hello, Mr. Lu. What can I do for you?" The man was very enthusiastic. I have something to do tonight. I won't be eating at the club or returning to Sky Capital Garden. Lu Cheng explained the situation. Okay, I'll inform the logistics team and car team immediately. Mr. Lu, what time will you be leaving? Where are you going? I'll help you arrange the use of the car. The man asked eagerly. Every physical and vulnerability expert was assigned a nanny car. The inhuman experts of the reserve team rotated between 3 cars. Those who were free would use them. Those who were not free would have to apologize. However, under normal circumstances, they had sufficient resources. This was because Tu Zheng and the rest had their own cars. It was just that they were too lazy to drive them occasionally. I have to reach the university town at 6:30. Lu Qing had originally planned to use his phone app to call for a car. However, since there was a benefit, it would be a waste not to use it. Okay, I'll arrange it immediately. The man seized the opportunity and said, Take down my phone number. I'll send you a message to confirm it later. My name is Huang Bin. My phone number is. Forget it, you don't have to remember it. I'll send you a message directly. Okay. Lu Qing didn't reject. The staff of the assistant team had a good service attitude. In the assistant team office, Huang Bin, who had a 370 hairstyle, typed a message excitedly. He wrote his phone number and name. After which, he glanced at the paper address book and sent it to Lu Qing. Immediately after, he hurriedly arranged the cars and gave the best one to Lu Qing. To him, this was a great opportunity. The assistant team had the supervisor and deputy supervisor, as well as the personal assistant of a physical and vulnerability expert. They all had high salaries, face and status. This was especially so for the latter. Sometimes he was equivalent to the spokesperson of a physical and vulnerability expert. Wherever he went, he would be surrounded by people. Even officials and bosses had to curry favor with him. As for the reserve team and the dance stage team, they didn't have a fixed target to follow. Therefore, they couldn't enjoy the treatment of a physical and vulnerability expert's follower. They were considered ordinary staff. Their treatment wasn't bad, but that was it. With the property prices in Huaqing, it was wishful thinking to want to settle down and buy a house here. Most people could do similar jobs, but they were highly replaceable. As a result, their salary couldn't be compared to that of a designated assistant of a physical and vulnerability expert. In the reserve team, the 2 most likely to reach the physical and vulnerability stage were Tu Zheng and Lu Qing. The former had a good relationship with Sun Tingting and would look for her every time. The latter was new to the club and was unfamiliar with the place. It went without saying who would be easier to befriend. As long as I can gain Lu Cheng's recognition and become his trusted servant, wouldn't I be able to reach the pinnacle of my life when he makes the leap and appoints me as his assistant? Back then, in order to take on Lu Cheng's mission, everyone was locked in a fierce fight. Amon, the newcomer with the least experience, benefited from it. Now my chance is back. Lu Cheng didn't try to guess what Huang Bin was thinking. He didn't care at all. He spent the entire afternoon in the training room, studying the diagrams and practicing his techniques. The more he practiced, the more shocked and excited he became. Boom. He was in the training field attached to the training room. He extended his fist and punched the air, causing flames to sweep outwards. The 13th move of the fire sect, Scorch. This may seem like the simplest move, but there are many mysterious techniques to it. The more I practice and practice, the more I feel like I'm still lacking. Lu Cheng compared the way he usually used the move and felt that today was different from yesterday. As expected of a move that had been modified by generations of mighty ones. Even the Dragon King had improved on it. It could really be said to be well practiced. At 5:30 in the afternoon, Lu Qing pulled himself out of his obsession. He took a shower, rested for a while, put on his backpack, and walked out of the door. According to Huang Bin, there would be a car waiting for him there. P.S. Please recommend me. Chapter 543. As they approached the entrance of the club, Lu Qing saw a tanned and skinny young man with a parted hairstyle walking towards them. He spoke with a heavy Guangnan accent. Hello, Mr. Lu. I'm Huang Bin. The car is ready at the entrance. Sorry to trouble you. Lu Qing thanked him politely. You don't have to be so polite. This is my job, replied Huang Bin with a smile. Huang Bin answered with a big smile. He turned around and led Lu Qing out of the gate. They boarded a black MPV. Lu Qing sized it up casually and felt that the interior was soft yellow. It was more luxurious than the one in the morning. There were curtains and partitions between the driver's seat and the driver's seat. Through the walkie-talkie, absolute privacy was guaranteed. There was a cabinet at the bar with famous wines in it. The refrigerator was divided into 2 levels. Half was for cold drinks and the other half was for ice and ice cream. To the university town. Huang Bin picked up the walkie-talkie and said, although he had already sent the destination to the driver, he couldn't let go of the opportunity to show off. After doing all this, he didn't stay any longer. He got out of the car with a smile, so as not to delay the time of the future physical invulnerability. Lu Qing nodded at him and opened the fridge. He took out a bottle of mineral water, poured himself a glass and drank. At the entrance of the club, Yu Wangyuan and Lu Xiaofei, who were waiting for the car to return to Sky Capital Garden, witnessed everything. They had mixed feelings. The latter pouted and said, the assistant team is really snobbish. They're practically at the beck and call. If I can achieve physical invulnerability, I definitely won't pick among them. In comparison, Almin is still alright. She's so warm and considerate to everyone. Their snobbery might be what the club wants. Yu Wangyuan's round face was full of self-deprecating smiles. What do you mean? Lu Xiaofei played with her short hair. To create a difference in levels and create the beauty of special privileges. If physical invulnerability, quasi-physical invulnerability, and inhuman are treated the same, how can the difference in status be reflected? How can we be motivated to catch up? Yu Wangyuan replied calmly with a sigh. To the club, getting a few more cars and a few more drivers is just a small matter. But why do we have to do that? If you want others to treat you seriously and fawn on you, then you have to work hard to improve yourself and become the most popular person in their eyes. Lu Xiaofei listened thoughtfully and nodded slightly. That's really the feeling. When I was in the dance stage group, I didn't have the opportunity to coordinate the use of the car at all times. Every day, when I missed the shuttle bus, I had to think of other ways. The people in the assistant group only came back once in a few days, and they didn't even show up for no reason. At that time, I was filled with the desire to stand out and enter the reserve group. Seeing that his teammates agreed, Yu Wangyuan opened his mouth. With our realm and strength, if we aren't in Longhu, we can be the cream of the crop in any province or city. There will be plenty of opportunities, VIP treatment, and various benefits. But this way, we won't have the motivation to push forward. We won't lack anything, and there won't be anyone to compare with. It's very comfortable, and it's inevitable that our willpower will soften. If I had chosen the police when I left the army, I would definitely have a high position in the provincial department. But I still have the ambition to become a true mighty one. The reason why the reserve group model is so popular in the top professional competitions is not only because we can often receive guidance from physical invulnerability experts, but also because there are so many inhumans together. It's inevitable that there will be comparisons and competition between them. This is very beneficial for training. Lu Xiaofei exhaled and said, that's true. That's indeed the case. My biggest goal now is... Halfway through her sentence, she suddenly laughed. After a few seconds, she said, to surpass you. Very good. My goal is to catch up with Leader 2. Yu Wangyuan laughed softly. Lu Xiaofei took a deep look at him. She felt that this friendly-looking teammate of hers was much more profound than usual. He was born in the army and had a lot of experience. He's not like me, a blank piece of paper, who rose up step by step in Longhu Martial Arts School. Lu Xiaofei muttered to herself and said doubtfully, but with so many Haipin martial artists gathered together for training, it will also create a lot of psychological stress for everyone. If they can't compare to others, they will fall behind in competition. It's fine if it happens twice or thrice, but once it happens too often, the impact will be huge. If it happens repeatedly for a few years, even the strongest willpower will be shaken, right? That's why there are arrangements for us to train in other teams. Firstly, It's to train in actual combat. Secondly, it's to give us confidence. If we really can't do it, then we'll switch to management, the police, or the military. There are Inhumans quitting every year. It's not like you haven't seen it. That's how great the pressure of competition is. Yu Wangyuan looked out of the door and suddenly laughed. All right, our bus is here. When we get home, remember the feeling of being agitated by Lu Cheng. Turn it into motivation, and strive not to be caught up by him within a year. Work hard. Lu Xiaofei waved her fist heroically. Beside the door of the silver-gray business van, Almond's face was so dark that it looked like water could drip out of it. She had witnessed the scene of Huang Bin fawning over Lu Cheng from the second-floor office. She felt like she was stabbed in the back. I tried my best to be fair and not compete with the seniors in the office. When a pie fell from the sky and I was sent by the supervisor to welcome Lu Cheng, I was in fear and trepidation. I didn't dare to have wishful thinking, and only wanted to gain recognition with my work attitude. Who knew that Huang Bin, a senior employee who was usually all smiles, actually contacted Lu Cheng privately and interfered? He usually acted like he had a good impression of me, and was rather ambiguous. But when it comes to benefits, he's actually like this. Treacherous villain. It's really not easy to survive in the workplace. The business van drove smoothly. Although there were occasional traffic jams, they still arrived at the university town at 6:20 p.m. They made a detour to the entrance of Jiang Fei's school. Just stop here. You can go back now. Sorry for the trouble. Lu Cheng glanced out of the window and saw Fatty Jiang. Hence, he picked up the walkie-talkie to communicate with the driver. Mr. Lu, I can wait for a while longer. I'll send you to the dining location before leaving. The driver took the initiative to suggest. That's fine too. I'll ask where I'm going. If it's on campus, I won't trouble you. Lu Cheng watched as the door opened by itself. He lowered his head and got off the van. He took a big stride forward and approached Fatty Jiang, who was wearing a gray t-shirt, light yellow shorts and black sandals. He reached out and patted Fatty Jiang's right shoulder while he dodged to the left. Fatty Jiang was still fooled hundreds of times. He looked to the right in a daze for a few seconds before regaining his senses. He looked to the left and complained. Why are you an inhuman mighty one, making fun of an ordinary person like me? Before I started practicing martial arts, I also didn't see you find the right place. Lu Cheng laughed. Where are we going to eat? Fatty Jiang was getting more and more mellow. Let's go to an old restaurant. The taste of their white-cut chicken. TSK. Let's not talk about it. I go there every week for a sumptuous meal. Jiang Fei swallowed his saliva. How far is it? Lu Cheng was getting hungry from his words. Jiang Fei looked into the distance. About 10 to 20 minutes by foot. Then we'll take a car there. Send me the address. Lu Cheng patted Fatty Jiang and gestured for him to follow him. After getting into the car, Jiang Fei opened his eyes wide and looked around cautiously. He praised from the bottom of his heart. Cheng, your treatment is awesome. He gave him a thumbs up. Aren't all commercial cars like this? Lu Cheng asked in amusement. He picked up the walkie-talkie and sent the address to the driver. I know. Jiang Fei smiled embarrassedly. I mean, there's a special driver. It's not a special one. It's just that I can use it. Lu Cheng answered honestly. Jiang Fei nodded. When he felt the car start, he subconsciously looked at the street outside the window. He saw his schoolmates coming and going while enduring the heat. He was in the cool air with cold drinks in front of him. After driving for 10 minutes, the commercial car stopped in front of the Lin's restaurant. After seeing the driver leave, the two entered the restaurant and ordered 2 white-cut chicken, 2 roast geese, 2 sets of barbecued pork and 4 plates of rice noodle roll. The waiter was stunned by the order. Take away if you can't finish it. Fatty Jiang shouted in annoyance. The waiter suddenly understood. After sitting down, Jiang Fei asked about the Longhu Club curiously. Then he smiled and pointed outside. This place is close to 3 universities. There are many beautiful girls coming and going. I look at them for a long time every time. Although I don't have a girlfriend, I feel satisfied. It's like I have the whole forest. Your attitude is called, look, my picturesque country. Lu Cheng teased Fatty Jiang. What can I do? I'm also desperate. Jiang Fei spread his hands. Last winter, a few schoolmates came to Xiushan to play. After knowing your Lu Cheng, they were very enthusiastic about me. They kept trying to introduce girls to me, but they all failed miserably. Then I can't help you. You can't lose weight. Lu Cheng took the opportunity to provoke him. Sigh, I'll just leave it to fate. Maybe one day someone will discover my rich inner qualities. Jiang Fei laughed at himself. They chatted for a while on this topic. When they talked about finding a job, Jiang Fei said with a distressed expression, I can't be like you and become a tycoon after graduation. Actually, with my major, if I want to work in a factory, I'm not afraid that no one will want me. But after thinking about it, I feel reluctant. In the second half of the year, I'll apply for other resumes. Anyway, if I don't stay in Huaqing, I'll go to Gaofen. I won't consider other places. Well, Gaofen has been developing well in recent years. Lu Cheng didn't know about Jiang Fei's major, so he didn't express his opinion casually. Sometimes I miss high school. I didn't have to think about anything else. I didn't have to choose. I only had to focus on studying. Once I was free, I could play with my heart. Unlike now, Jiang Fei sighed. Once you enter society, you'll feel that university is better. Lu Cheng answered seriously. I prefer university to high school. In high school, I felt that my mind was not mature enough. I didn't know how to appreciate life, so I lived without a care in the world. But in university, I gradually formed my views in various aspects. I have myself and am relatively free. I know. You have a goddess to accompany you in university. Jiang Fei picked up a piece of chicken and stuffed it into his mouth. Don't expose me. Lu Cheng couldn't help but laugh. Reminiscing about the past and looking forward to the future, the two chatted until the sky was completely dark. Then they slowly left Linji and strolled to the entrance of Jiang Fei's university. After saying goodbye to each other, Jiang Fei strolled back to the dormitory. He saw that his roommates were already online playing games. Fatty, why are you so late? Did you go on a date? A classmate took a break from the busy and joked. No, I don't have a girlfriend. Fatty Jiang said self-deprecatingly. Eating with my high school classmates. With the heavenly son of the era, Lu Cheng. Oh. His roommates didn't say much and continued to indulge in the game. Chapter 544. Ding. It was rare for Lu Cheng to receive a message. He picked it up and saw that it was a typhoon warning in Huaqing. In the next few days, a disaster would hit Huaqing. It's said that it happens a few times a year along the southeast coast. Lu Cheng thought about it casually, and started to think about where to do his morning training in the storm. Should he come to the club earlier? He used his chopsticks to tear a small hole in the crab roe soup dumpling in front of him, letting the soup slowly overflow and fill the entire plate. He then took a picture and sent it to Yenjika with a sneaky smile emoji. After returning from the university town last night, he chatted with his wife as usual, called his mother, chatted with Talker and the others on QQ, played 7 to 8 rounds of games and read novels. This morning he woke up on time and trained hard, focusing on the technique of the fire sect's 13th move, Scorch. At 8:15 a.m., he met up with Lu Xiaofei, Yu Wang Yuan, and the rest. They took a car to the club and enjoyed all kinds of breakfast in the restaurant. I want to eat. Yenjika replied with a teary face emoji. I just finished my morning training. Who's showing off a big meal? Lu Cheng snickered. It was summer break at Connecticut University. His wife's homework was coming to an end along with the submission of the report. Her parents-in-law had flown to America and planned to bring her on a 2-week trip before returning together. At that time, little Fairy would spend a few days with her grandparents before flying over for a family reunion. Because it was too hot to go out, and because he didn't know much about Huaqing, Lu Cheng suggested that Yenjika buy a house during the winter break. In summer, shopping, eating at old restaurants, and lazing around at home with the air conditioner was the way to go. Furthermore, Longhu Club's salary was paid monthly. It was 800,000 a month. If it wasn't enough, it would be paid in one lump sum at the end of the year. If he wanted to pay the full amount, he would have to save for a while. Just as Lu Qing buried his head in the soup and stuffed the crust into his mouth and chewed with relish, the girl said, "I get hungry quickly. Can't I?" Okay. When you come to Huaxing, I'll bring you to the club's restaurant. Family members get a discount." Lu Qing smirked as he typed. Suddenly, he felt someone approaching. He looked up and saw Amin in a round collar white shirt walking over. She smiled and asked, "Mr. Lu, what do you think of the dishes from Xing province yesterday?" "Not bad. The craftsmanship is very authentic. It's not that kind of local improvement. However, there are a few dishes that I don't quite like. I can make some adjustments. For example, the beef and sour soup." Lu Qing honestly expressed his thoughts, not intending to be modest. In the next few years, he might have to eat the dishes cooked by that chef. He couldn't endure it for a while. Amin took out a pen and paper from her handbag and took notes seriously. In the end, she smiled and said, "I'll tell the chef directly." She emphasized the word direct to show her sincerity. Lu Qing smiled and nodded. He remembered the question and changed the topic. "Isn't there a typhoon coming soon? The Sky Capital Gardens field is half open, so there's no shelter from the rain. Where should I go for my morning exercise?" Amin's mind raced as she said, "Sky Capital Gardens Activity Center has a small indoor dojo. Mr. Lu, if you're sure, I can help you inform them in advance and get the key. When the time comes, you can go whenever you want." She was most afraid that Lu Qing wouldn't have any requests and she wouldn't be able to perform. Now, she couldn't wait to rush over to the Sky Capital Garden property. "Okay, thank you." Lu Qing heaved a sigh of relief and nodded sincerely. "You're welcome. It's what I should do." Amin was overjoyed, her pretty face glowing. She saw Lu Qing's gaze turn to the stack of steamers. She tactfully said, "I won't disturb your meal. I'll go settle the matter of the dojo." She took small steps back and slowly turned around. She walked towards the door with a smile. Only when she saw Huang Bin's annoyed expression did she restrain her expression. With her head held high, she walked past him in a dignified manner and left gracefully. She finally understood that in the workplace, it wasn't good to always give in and be a good person. You couldn't abandon your kindness to others, but you had to fight for what you had to fight for. Otherwise, not only would others trample on you, but they would also mock you. Huang Bin had been in the assistant group for many years. Although he wanted to immediately go up to Lu Qing and exchange a few pleasantries and ask if the driver yesterday was satisfactory, his rich experience told him that under the premise that Amin had just disturbed him, he would only trigger the emotion of annoyance if he went up himself. The loss outweighed the gain. He secretly gritted his teeth and silently left the restaurant. Lu Qing didn't notice the workplace struggles of others at all. He chatted with his little fairy while enjoying his breakfast. He left the restaurant at 9:10 a.m. and entered the dance stage training room to continue comprehending and practicing his unique skills. He returned to his exclusive resting room at 10:50 a.m. and had a video call with Yenjika. He returned to the restaurant at 12:30 a.m. and bumped into Tu Jing coming out. "Dinner gathering? I've already booked a private room in the club. Is it okay to leave at 6 p.m.? Tu Jing's chiseled face was gentle and smiling. "Sure." Lu Qing agreed readily since he had nothing to do. After that he, who had just come into contact with powerful martial arts, was so excited that he didn't take an afternoon nap. He spent the entire afternoon in the training room and the training room. Boom. In the void of his fist, scarlet flames rolled in all directions, hiding a golden color. Lu Qing nodded in satisfaction and kept his stance. He had finally mastered the 13th move of the fire sect, Scorch. Everything is difficult at the beginning. The progress of the remaining 20 over unique skills would be faster than this. Well, excluding the most difficult ones. Swoosh. Warm water dripped down and washed away his fatigue. Lu Qing changed his clothes and carried his bag. He went to the reserve team's training room in the northwest to meet up with Yu Wangyuan and the rest. "I've already informed the assistant team. There's a car to send you guys there. I'll bring Jianlin and Xiaolu." Tu Jing waved his hand generously. The 6 Inhumans of the reserve team arrived at a luxurious clubhouse without a word along the way. Just as they pushed open the door to the private room, Lu Cheng, Lu Xiaofei and the rest were stunned because there was already someone sitting inside. It was a bald man who looked like half of an iron tower, a first pin expert with fierce eyebrows. Optimus Prime Long Zhen. Compared to yesterday's meeting in the meeting room, Long Zhen didn't release his aura, but it made people tremble involuntarily. It was like an animal meeting its natural enemy, or a weakling meeting a mafia boss. Long Zhen didn't care about the shock of Jia Lu and the rest. He casually cut off the end of his cigar and turned it over the fire. Master Long took good care of me when I was in the reserve team. He often gave me pointers and can be considered as half a master to me. Tu Zheng explained with a smile. When he heard that I was going to hold a welcome dinner for Lu Cheng, he said he wanted to come and join in the fun. There aren't many physical invulnerability experts like him who don't put on airs. Isn't that so? Among all the physical invulnerability experts I've seen, those who put on airs are few and far between. Maybe he doesn't want to put on airs in front of me? Lu Cheng criticized in his heart. He cupped his fists and greeted him calmly. Lu Xiaofei and the rest came to their senses. Keeping their shock, they followed suit and greeted. Greetings, Master Long. Have a seat. Long Zhen's mouth broke into a wide arc. He pointed to the cigar box at the side and said to Lu Cheng, "Want one?" He didn't show any authority, but there was an irresistible aura about him. Who could reject the goodwill of a first pin expert? It's okay. I don't smoke. Lu Cheng took a light breath and smiled calmly. What are you afraid of? You're no longer at the foundation tempering stage, said Long Zhen as he took a puff of the cigar and slowly exhaled the smoke. Without waiting for Lu Cheng's reply, he chuckled and said, Your ice mirror has reached the level of encountering gods in the void. Self-reflection, right? As soon as he said that, Lu Xiaofei and the rest were shocked. Physical invulnerability experts wouldn't be interested in such a level. However, for inhumans it might not be possible. Among all the fourth pins present, other than Tu Zheng, no one else could achieve such a level. He had only been an inhuman for a year, right? As expected of the heavenly son of the era. This person must have specially researched my competition videos and put in a lot of effort. A first pin expert like Long Zhen wouldn't be so bored. Who could it be? Lu Cheng looked at Tu Zheng beside him and nodded thoughtfully. Yes. Isn't that settled then? At this level, controlling your body, removing the dirt and cleansing your lungs is a piece of cake. Why would you be afraid of a cigarette? Said Long Zhen with a half-smile. Lu Cheng gave a self-deprecating laugh and replied firmly, I really don't like it. Long Zhen didn't say anything else and turned to ask Wang Yuan and the rest. No one rejected him. In an instant, the room was filled with smoke and looked like a fairyland. Lu Cheng didn't mind. His lungs were so strong that they could cleanse themselves. Not smoking directly was just a matter of attitude and principle. When the cold dishes were served, Tu Zheng smiled and said, I brought a few good wines. You guys take a look and see what you want to drink. After Lu Xiaofei and the rest made their choices, Lu Cheng waved his hand and said awkwardly, I don't drink. Don't drink? Which swordsman in ancient times didn't drink? Sneered Long Zhen. Lu Cheng shook his head and said, I'm used to it. There's no need to break it. Besides, compared to alcohol, I prefer other flavors. You're so boring. Long Zhen didn't force him. He chuckled and said, If it were any other job, if you don't drink, would you dare to not drink when the leader stares at you? I'm working hard to practice martial arts so that I can have the right to refuse. Lu Cheng imitated what he said back then and smiled calmly. Long Zhen nodded slowly. You're right. The grouper and abalones were served one by one. When the banquet started, Tu Zheng livened up the conversation. Long Zhen also talked about the things that happened in the reserve team from time to time. Both the guests and the host enjoyed themselves. After dinner, Long Zhen didn't stay for long. He said that he was going to other places in the club to relax. Under Tu Zheng's invitation, Lu Cheng and the rest went to the KTV on the third floor to sing for a while. After Lu Xiaofei and Jia Lu played for a while and left, Tu Zheng smiled and went out for a few minutes. Not long after he came back, the door opened. More than 10 girls walked in and stood in a row in front of the big screen. Some were young and beautiful, some were charming, and some were fat and thin. They all had their own flavors. The quality is not bad. You guys can choose first. Tu Zheng leaned back in a relaxed manner and rested his arms on the back of the sofa. I don't need it. Lu Cheng was the first to answer. What are you afraid of? What's wrong with a man acting outside? Tu Zheng chuckled. Seeing that Yu Wangyuan and Sun Jianlin had started to choose, Lu Cheng took a deep breath and stood up. I have something to do. I'll leave first. You guys have fun. After he finished, he exchanged glances with Tu Zheng. He didn't panic at all and was calm. Go ahead if you have something to do, Tu Zheng said slowly. Lu Cheng nodded and left. After he left, Sun Jianlin drank with his female companion as if nothing had happened. He smiled and said, Leader 2, you're too anxious. We don't know each other well enough. He's still a kid who just left school. That's true. However, I can see that Lu Cheng is a person with a strong will. He's a martial artist who is used to restraining himself. Yu Wangyuan sighed and hugged his two female companions. Tu Zheng had a beautiful girl sitting beside him. His eyes were half closed and he didn't say a word. July 3rd, Friday afternoon. Lu Cheng was having his meal when Yu Wangyuan leaned over and smiled. The reserve team has a weekly sparring session in the afternoon. Do you want to join? Lu Cheng, who had mastered another unique skill of the fire sect, was itching to join. Sure. Chapter 545. 2:30 p.m., first floor of the reserve team's training ground in the northwest area. Tu Zheng smiled and said to Lu Cheng, Everyone has been training hard every day and neglecting actual combat. Sparring with each other can help verify what we have learned and find problems. After all, our martial artists are not of a high rank and can only help to simulate the style of sparring. Therefore, the reserve team has always had this tradition. When there are no matches, we will organize a sparring session on Friday afternoons. This was also an effective way to increase the competitive atmosphere in the reserve team. Understood. Our martial arts club used to do similar exercises, Lu Cheng replied casually. However, it wasn't as formal as today. The strength of both parties was also lower. All right then. Let's draw lots. Since we are going to verify what we have learned, there is no need to hide it. I reckon we will be exhausted after one round. Tu Zheng picked up a piece of white paper on the table and scribbled a few numbers. He tore it into 6 pieces and messed them up. The one who gets 1 will be the first to spar. The one who gets 2 will be the second, and the one who gets 3 will be the last. They were in a small office attached to the training ground. There were surveillance cameras that had to be turned on to record the situation of the sparring session. It would be convenient for them to observe the process and analyze problems from the perspective of a bystander. It was much more formal than the Songqing University Martial Arts Club. Lu Cheng picked up a random piece and opened it. He couldn't help but smile. 3. You can only be the last. I'm 1. Tu Zheng flashed the piece of paper. Team 2, why are we meeting again? Sun Jianlin bared his teeth. The piece of paper in his hand clearly had the word 1. This is called fate. Tu Zheng laughed and turned to look at Lu Xiaofei and the rest. Who got 3? Me. Yu Wangyuan chuckled. He flipped his palm and revealed the piece of paper. Not bad. An experienced 4th pin mighty one. Lu Cheng nodded. He was looking forward to the upcoming sparring session. Stepping into the arena room that was specially built for the training ground, Lu Cheng leaned against the bulletproof and heatproof glass. He glanced at the cameras everywhere and watched as Tu Zheng and Sun Jianlin walked to the center and took up their stances. Yu Wangyuan acted as the temporary referee. Lowering his waist and releasing his aura, Tu Zheng's smile disappeared. Golden red flames seemed to be leaping out of his eyes. Even though they were dozens of meters apart, Lu Cheng could feel the air getting hotter. It was like when he passed by an iron smelting furnace when he was young and happened to see red water flowing out. It was as if the air conditioner in the training ground had malfunctioned, and the high temperature from outside seeped in, slightly changing the environment with his aura. As expected of a mighty one close to physical invulnerability, Lu Cheng nodded slightly. At the same time, he was filled with admiration and motivation to catch up. The battle between Tu Zheng and Sun Jianlin lasted for 3 minutes. Tu Zheng, who was obviously holding back, eventually defeated his opponent. He even gave Sun Jianlin some pointers as the team leader. This allowed Lu Cheng, who was watching from the side, to have a new understanding of some of the moves in the dance stage chapter of the fire sect. It could be seen that other than the fire sect techniques, Tu Zheng had also learned the secret art that combined the golden bell shield and the undying flesh body. However, his core force was the fire force, which couldn't fully support the other martial arts, making the effect seem rather weak. Similarly, Sun Jianlin, who had completed the mutation with the Emperor Yen force, couldn't fully display the wonders of the dark sect's flickering light-passing shadow. In the second battle, Jialu used a weapon. It was a short sword made of alloy that was about the length of a forearm. It had a faint red glow to it. When it was swung, sparks flew and it was exceptionally terrifying. Lu Qing admired her swordsmanship with great interest and studied how she had integrated the secret arts of the fire sect into it. According to his master's description, at the inhuman stage, the power of punches and slashes was similar to the power of weapons. The greatest use of the latter was actually to expand the range of close-range attacks. An inch longer, an inch stronger. Of course, as an external object, there was a gap between weapons and the force that one had cultivated. If one used it directly without polishing it, it would only spoil the weapon. Unless one allowed flames and other substances to attach to the surface of the weapon, it wouldn't be very effective. Therefore, after obtaining a weapon, if a martial artist wanted to use it, they would have to follow the ancient method and constantly nourish it with the force. The modern theory was that through the repeated scouring of the force with low intensity, the molecular structure and composition of the material would gradually change. In the end, it would resemble the skin and muscles of the owner, to a certain extent, and complete the conduction with less loss. It was precisely because of this that even if one obtained a divine weapon that had been used by a physical invulnerability expert before, under the circumstances of incompatibility, it could only be used as a slightly sharper kitchen knife. Every master who specialized in weapons had a few companions that they had nourished for many years. In order to prevent damage, they had to start all over again. With the breakthrough in the research of bionics materials, custom-made weapons could greatly reduce the time needed to nourish them. This was a huge blow to the ancient style, but it was an inevitable trend in the development of the era. Scarlet light flashed, and the sword shadows were like rainbows. Jialu's fight was spectacular, and she had the upper hand for a while. Lu Xiaofei, on the other hand, wasn't in a hurry. She steadily defended the opening and avoided the attacks. When the opponent's momentum started to weaken, she suddenly exploded and attacked like fire. She was as fierce as the tide and instantly put the opponent in a difficult situation. After putting up a strong resistance a few times, Jialu still couldn't turn the situation around. Not only that, she was sinking deeper and deeper. When she was on the verge of defeat, she had no choice but to admit defeat in frustration and reflect on her mistakes in the previous battle. Tu Zheng, Wang Yuan, and the rest interjected from time to time, voicing their own opinions and acting as a stepping stone for others. Lu Qing liked this kind of atmosphere very much. How his teammates played in private was their own business, but when it came to martial arts, they were very serious. They were in the golden age of vitality, drive, experience, mentality, and other factors combined together. After the exchange, Wang Yuan, who had been the referee for 2 rounds, stepped into the center. His muscles were firm and his face was round. Lu Qing, who was full of anticipation, didn't waste any time. He flicked his navy blue martial arts suit and left the edge unhurriedly. Tu Zheng, who had taken a break, would be the referee for this round. Seeing that both parties had gotten into their stances and were ready to go, he waved his right hand and exhaled loudly. Begin. Lu Xiaofei, Jialu, and the rest were energized. They paid more attention to the battle than before. After Lu Cheng's battle with Peng Liyun at the end of April, he hadn't fought for more than 2 months. At that time, he already had the strength of a quasi-4th pin. What level was he at now? They didn't doubt that Lu Qing had the possibility of winning. There wasn't much difference between a quasi-4th pin and a veteran 4th pin. The only difference was training, accumulation, and battle experience. Wang Yuan was definitely more powerful, but he wouldn't be so powerful to the extent of crushing his opponent. both parties would have a 70-30 chance of winning. Improvisation was equally important. Following Tu Zheng's shout, Wang Yuan pounced out crazily. He dashed left and right in small steps, like a huge fire burning in a prairie. There wasn't anywhere for him to escape, and he could only take it head-on. Lu Cheng had the heart to experience it. Like Peng Liyun, he chose not to dodge. He lowered his waist, gathered his qi and blood, and exploded his Dan force. Wearing a scarlet-red flame glove on his right fist, he swung it heavily and powerfully. Wang Yuan lowered his back and suddenly rushed forward. His speed reached the peak in an instant. During this process, he made use of the inertia to attack. He gathered his qi and blood and expanded his arm. Fire force condensed and poured into Wang Yuan's fist. He didn't release it outwards. Instead, it gently exploded from within, creating a huge pushing force that accelerated forward. In an instant, Wang Yuan's left fist increased in speed. It dragged out a shadow and hit Lu Cheng's flame glove. Boom! Scarlet light scattered like rain. Lu Cheng felt that his opponent's strength was surging like the sea and mountains. It was hard for him to take it head-on. He could only step on the ice crystals and slide backwards. With a slurp, he seemed to be running backwards. The 15th style of the fire sect, jet spray. During the winter break, Dong Xiaoyang had also used this move to defeat Lu Cheng. It was an imitation of the 1-inch punch technique. It used the controlled explosion of one's own fire force to replace the bouncing of the joints and stretching of the fascia to create a double pushing force. It could be used to change the part of the attack or to stack up pure strength. It was a rather practical secret art. With one move, the flames scattered like rain and the person retreated like a push. Wang Yuan had gained the upper hand. He took a step forward and threw his right fist forward, doing jet spray again. As expected, Wang Yuan's strength is much stronger than Lu Cheng's. Lu Xiaofei, Jia Lu, and Sun Jianlin nodded as they watched. They heaved a sigh of relief. Once an expert makes a move, it's easy to tell if he's skilled or not. Jet spray was Wang Yuan's best secret art. It could be used until the opponent admitted defeat. Lu Cheng, who was sliding backwards, was getting more and more excited. He immediately circulated his qi and blood to stimulate the corresponding parts. Gotcha. Facing Wang Yuan's jet spray attack, he didn't retreat but advanced instead. He took half a step forward and stretched his body, turning into a giant with bulging muscles. He swung his arm and smashed down with his fist from a condescending position. The simplified battle formula. Chapter 546. Bam! The two fists collided. Both of their muscles swelled exaggeratedly, as though they were squeezing every ounce of energy out of their bodies. At the point of contact, air currents formed and turned into waves, spreading wildly in all directions. The loud, dull sound shook the transparent glass dozens of meters away, causing them to vibrate continuously. Clang, clang, clang. Wang Yuan's arm went numb, and he swung back. His right fist made a cracking sound as his slightly deformed bones recovered. In terms of absolute strength, the double push was slightly weaker than the simplified fighting formula. Of course, this was under the situation where both parties were of similar realms and levels. His body shook, and he was about to lose his balance. Wang Yuan quickly retracted his qi and blood, stabilizing his center of gravity. He then spurted his Dan force again, directing it to his right arm. At this moment, he saw Lu Cheng's body suddenly grow taller. His clothes outlined the shape of all his muscles. His exposed skin, other than his face, had bulging veins that were green and black. His fist carried this violent force, swinging down as though he was smashing a mountain. Clenching his teeth, Wang Yuan pulled his arm back, raised his forearm, and quickly swung his fist in reverse to meet his opponent. Just as they were about to reach each other, the fire force exploded gently, creating a turbulent pushing force that allowed the fist to rise into the air like a rocket. With a bang, it broke through the air barrier and hit Lu Cheng's punch. With a crack, Wang Yuan's feet sank into the ground. Cracks extended outwards, intersecting with the scars from the two previous battles. His body trembled at high speed, his muscles undulating as though he was dispelling the remaining energy. As an experienced mighty one of the fourth pin, he wasn't disheartened by the setback. Without thinking, he did the Dan concentration again, preparing for an outburst. This time he was going to use another technique of jet spray to turn the tables. When there was another chance, the fire sect was also very good at stimulating outbursts. It was just that he hadn't reached the realm of encountering gods in the void, so he couldn't use secret arts that were harmful to his body continuously like Lu Cheng. It was at this moment that Lu Cheng seemed to have predicted his next move based on his body language and the condition of his muscles. Instead of using the simplified fighting formula, he gathered and released his Dantian Qi and launched a low kick with his right foot. It was fast and vicious. This made Wang Yuan, who was still stuck in the ground, feel his heart tighten. He activated the fire force in advance and pulled his arm back fiercely, moving his back and pulling his left leg up. He tightened his muscles and resisted with a bang. His body was obviously swaying. The kick landed. Lu Cheng swung his waist and his left leg stepped forward, as if he was stepping and kicking at the same time. Pa pa pa, 1 kick, 2 kicks, 3 kicks. Lu Cheng's 2 legs attacked consecutively, as though a chilly northern wind had been stirred up, forcing Wang Yuan to retreat step by step. During this process, Wang Yuan only felt that his ankles were starting to stiffen. The coldness slowly seeped into his flesh and blood. The surrounding space was becoming more and more like ice, sticking to his movements, making it harder and harder for him to dodge. A layer of sparkling and translucent light appeared on the ground, as if it was a cold winter square that had been watered. The 17th move of the ice sect, polar ground. Thump, thump, thump. Lu Cheng's feet gradually became heavier. The layer of ice thickened, and the chill intensified. Wang Yuan didn't wait any longer. He made a decision on the spot. A reddish-gold light flashed in his eyes. His right leg, which was dodging, suddenly stomped heavily on the ground. However, this powerful stomp didn't cause any tremors. Instead, it caused the surroundings to become strangely stagnant. Boom! Dozens of centimeters in front of where Wang Yuan's feet landed, where Lu Cheng's body was, the sound of air expanding suddenly erupted from the surface of the limestone. A reddish-gold pillar of fire rose into the air. The temperature was extremely high and the flames were intense. The 28th move of the fire sect, Burning God. Before the flames had risen, Lu Cheng had already stopped in his tracks. He bent his back and narrowly avoided the flames of the Burning God. The flames flew into the air, sticking close to his body. They turned into a fountain and scattered helplessly. Bam! At this moment, Wang Yuan had finished retracting his force. He pulled back his arm and struck Lu Cheng from the side. His fist seemed to be filled with blood, red and ferocious. Just as Lu Cheng straightened his back, moved his arm, and raised his forearm to make a parry, there seemed to be an explosion from within Wang Yuan's right fist. His fist changed direction abruptly. Like the head of an agile snake, it strangely turned to one side and swung towards Lu Cheng's shoulder in the opposite direction. In a split second, he changed the direction of his attack. Another application of the unique skill of the fire sect, jet spray. Its change of direction was entirely driven by the force generated from the explosion of the fire force. There were no signs beforehand, and it was hard to predict. It was the nemesis of the characteristics of realms, such as absolute reaction, and encountering gods in the void. When he first imparted the ice mirror to Lu Cheng, Geyser had reminded him not to completely rely on this skill. After so many years, others weren't fools. They had already thought of ways to deceive him. There weren't many, but there were definitely some. If he blindly followed the reflection of the ice mirror, he would definitely be at a disadvantage. In the past 2 years, Lu Cheng had already established the core position of the ice mirror in his fighting style. Although he would occasionally choose to make his own judgment and not blindly trust the ice mirror, he still trusted the ice mirror in most situations. If it wasn't for the fact that he browsed through the Dan stage chapter of the fire sect a few days ago, and was alarmed by the shocking application of jet spray, he probably wouldn't have remembered his master's advice. At this moment, it was inevitable that he would be flustered and make a mistake in his panic. Luckily, he was already prepared. He pulled his spine and pulled back his shoulders. His entire body slanted, causing Wang Yuan's sudden reverse swing to hit the air with a dull thud. Yu Wangyuan's intent was like a raging fire. He expanded outwards, lowered his waist, gathered his qi and blood and swung it away. Bam! He punched with his left fist towards Lu Cheng's waist. Halfway through, his force exploded. The snake head rose, opened his 5 fingers and fangs, and tore at his opponent's arm. The double push of jet spray was an explosive force within the body. No matter how controlled it would still cause damage. Therefore, compared to the Emperor Yen force, the fire force, which was gentler and more stable, complemented it well. It could help Yu Wangyuan use it many times. Bam! 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 Yu Wangyuan's fists were sometimes straight and sometimes curved, changing and sometimes heavy. This made Lu Qing tense up. He didn't dare to use his full strength, and he didn't dare to use all of his moves. In an instant he was at a disadvantage. He dodged, turned, and dodged continuously. Yu Wangyuan took a step forward and changed the direction of his fist, smashing it towards Lu Cheng's chin. Following which, he leaned his body, bent his elbow, and stomped on the ground. Bam bam bam. He closed in and attacked crazily. His moves were continuous, bringing along golden red sparks, creating a strong wind. Lu Qing is still pretty strong. Jia Lu stroked her short sword, communicating with it emotionally, and sighed softly. If it were her, she would have been in a precarious situation under Yu Wangyuan's attacks, and was about to lose. They were both newbies, who had entered the high pin for less than a year. Why was the difference so huge? Yu Wangyuan's continuous attacks aren't that simple. Pay attention to the shape of the remnants of his flames, said Lu Xiaofei enviously as she tilted her head. That was a combination of experience, technique, and proficiency. She couldn't be that experienced and ruthless. Jia Lu focused her gaze. Amidst the banging sounds, the streaks of golden red flames burning in midair seemed to have formed the outline of a flood dragon's head. Just waiting for the finishing touch, it would open its mouth and bite. This. Jia Lu suddenly thought of a unique skill, the 27th move of the fire sect, Red Dragon. When it was completed, the reserved fire force would be fully activated, creating an exaggerated effect of combining several attacks into one. At this moment, Lu Qing, who was already reflected in the ice mirror, suddenly took a deep breath. The muscles on his chest all caved in. Following this force and the wind from his opponent's punch, he swung backwards and moved away in a strange manner. The flames on Yu Wangyuan's fists were burning brightly. He was about to charge forward with his fists to add the finishing touch. However, Lu Cheng's eyes flashed with bloodlust. The sharp tip of his weapon seemed to have been placed on his opponent's neck. To Lu Cheng, the simplified version of the 9 words formula might be more useful than the original version. In an intense battle, a moment's difference could be the difference between victory and defeat. Yu Wangyuan's body stiffened. His thoughts were in a mess. He didn't manage to add the finishing touch in time. The remaining fire force around him was getting weaker and weaker. Lu Qing gathered his qi and blood and took a step forward. Wearing a scarlet-red glove on his right fist, he struck heavily from the side. After Yu Wangyuan blocked it, his dan exploded again, and his left arm rose again. Bam, bam, bam. He attacked with both fists. Sparks flew from his fists. They were heavy and scorching. Yu Wangyuan could only continuously retreat and block. The rhythm was completely under Lu Cheng's control. As such, even if Yu Wangyuan wanted to break free, he would be interrupted midway. If he wanted to be faster, he would be blocked by Lu Cheng's scorch-heavy punch. His footsteps and fists were one and connected tightly. Lu Qing was like a robot. He didn't know fatigue and continued to explode. He didn't give his opponent any chance to turn the tables. Bam bam bam. After blocking for an unknown number of times, Yu Wangyuan's teeth were a little loose from the vibrations. Seeing that he had no other choice, he could only use his trump card. His breathing paused. The reddish gold in his eyes condensed, and was tainted with some purple. At this moment, the ripples of Lu Cheng's ice mirror reflected the abnormality of his opponent. Without waiting any longer, he threw another scorch-heavy punch. However, he didn't hit Yu Wangyuan's body. Instead, he hit the void between the two of them. The scarlet-red flames condensed on the surface of his fist and almost turned white. It was heavy and heavy. Whoosh! The surrounding air ignited without any wind. The raging flames collapsed towards Emperor Yin and gathered towards Yuan Yuan. The 116th style of the fire sect, Flying Moth. This was the scorching fist. Wherever the high temperature passed, the air would be in a state of being ignited. When the time was right, the Emperor Yin force would attract the air to complete the contraction and increase the density. Once the density increased, the heat would be even stronger. The air would burn as well, like moths flying towards a candle flame. This move was rather difficult to master. Without control of the surroundings and self, there was no way to connect it. However, to Lu Cheng it was just right. Flames surged in from all directions aggressively. Yuan Yuan's heart tightened. He gave up on his preparations and raised his hand to block. He felt that even his respiratory tract was unbearably hot. As the flying moth came, Lu Cheng had already closed in. He threw a punch from the bottom up towards the sky. Yuan Yuan had absolute reaction and hurriedly raised his arm to block. However, he felt that his opponent's fist passed by his side and stopped at his throat. He had made a mistake in his block. Due to the difference in density due to the high temperature, his visual judgment was slightly off. And this slight difference was the difference between victory and defeat. It wasn't that there was a problem with absolute reaction. It was that he didn't extend his arm enough to block. Flying moth into the flame, illusions before death. As the flames fell, Tu Zheng was stunned for a second. He raised his hand and said, "Lu Qing wins." Phew. Although Lu Qing had taken me by surprise and barely won, he had displayed the strength of a true fourth pin. He has already caught up to me. Lu Xiaofei looked at the figure in the arena and was silent. Chapter 547. In the middle of the field, Yuan Yuan shook his body and shook off the sticky flames. He forced a smile and said, "When I noticed that you were using Emperor Yen force to propel Scorch Punch instead of alternating with Ice Spirit force, I should have guessed that you had mastered Flying Moth. Sigh, I was too careless. After all, Lu Qing had only joined the club for less than a week. I haven't formed the concept of him mastering more fire sect's secret arts. That's why I was at a disadvantage." Tu Zheng nodded and said, "He didn't use ice force to lower the temperature, slow down the speed and control it. He kept stacking Scorch Punch. Even if you didn't think of Flying Moth, you should be more careful. There must be something fishy going on." Seeing that they were reviewing and summarizing their gains and losses, Lu Qing pondered and said, "I had a problem with the way I changed the direction of jet spray. I shouldn't have just dodged and dodged. At that time, it might have been better to counterattack and use offense as defense. Yes, forcing jet spray to change to defense was the best choice. It's very important to grasp the rhythm and take the initiative." Tu Zheng gave a rather pertinent comment. Lu Xiaofei, Sun Jianlin, and Jiao Lu joined in and discussed the details of the battle. Lu Cheng seemed to have gained a few new perspectives and gained more experience. Cultivators often say that money, companions, techniques, and land are not a lie. He sighed to himself. No money? How can you practice martial arts if you don't have money? You can't even keep up with the nutrition. At the initial stage of body forging, one had to at least ensure that they ate enough meat every day. Otherwise, sooner or later, they would pee blood and their body would collapse. It was only because of the abundance of resources in the modern society that many people could practice martial arts as they wished. If it were in ancient times, it wouldn't be so easy. They could only wait for their talents to be discovered and nurtured. No training companions? No good opponents? Then it would be inevitable that they would not be able to see Mount Tai. The higher they went, the more they would fall into bottlenecks and eventually come to a standstill. Although Tu Zheng and Yuan Yuan weren't good friends, they could still feel the effects of the brainstorm of martial artists of the same level from this sparring session. As for the cultivation method, it was definitely indispensable. If one wanted to rely on one's own strength to create something out of nothing and open up a path that was not inferior to the results of the hard work of generations of predecessors, it was inevitable that it would be wishful thinking. Even a freak like the martial sage would only be able to create something after the Thunder Sect cultivation method had been mastered. Only by standing on the shoulders of giants could one see higher and see further. In modern society, Land was inseparable from wealth. What volcano laboratory? What ice sect simulation environment? How could ordinary forces afford it? While thinking, Lu Cheng saw that the sparring session had ended. He returned to the training room of the dance stage and continued to study and practice his unique skills. Yu Wangyuan watched as his figure disappeared into the doorway. He sighed with a hint of envy. Encountering gods in the void, self-reflection. That's really something. Up until now, I've only been able to use Flying Moth during practice. Once it's in a real battle, I can't use both at the same time. In less than a week, he had mastered Scorch and Flying Moth. This speed tisk. Sun Jianlin shook his head. Lu Xiaofei said self-deprecatingly. A few days ago, I was still saying that I would strive to not be caught up by Lu Cheng within a year. The words were still ringing in my ears, and he had already displayed the standard of a genuine fourth pin. Seriously, Sai, this is normal. To the heavenly sons of the era, it's normal for them to advance one pin in a year before reaching physical invulnerability. Compared to Lu Cheng's previous improvement speed, this is already very normal. We can only learn to accept it. Yu Wangyuan sighed and smiled. Luckily, he will reach the threshold of physical invulnerability in the next stage. It won't be that fast anymore. There will definitely be a bottleneck. Tu Zheng had been silent all this while. At this moment, he asked thoughtfully, during this period, Lu Cheng has been in the training room from morning till night? That's right. Other than resting from 11 a.m. to 12:30 a.m., he's always in the training room. It's not unreasonable for him to master Scorch and Flying Moth in less than a week. Yu Wangyuan said with a sigh. Others were more talented than you, more restrained than you, and worked as hard as you. It was simply despairing. At the very beginning, he had thought that Lu Cheng had neglected his training and relied entirely on his talent. Speaking of this, Yu Wangyuan looked at Tu Zheng and forced a smile. Leader Tu, don't worry. You are already close to physical invulnerability and have reached the realm of encountering gods in the void. The next step is to make the great leap and become a true mighty one. At that time, no matter how fast Lu Cheng improves, it will have nothing to do with you and won't affect you. Tu Zheng was silent for a few seconds before laughing out loud. This is actually pretty good. With a strong opponent chasing behind me, I can improve faster. I still have a little more than a year to go before I reach 30. If I can't make the great leap, then my hopes will be slim. Now is the time for me to fight with my back to the wall and burn my boats. Although there were examples of Liang Yifan reaching physical invulnerability in his 30s, there were only a handful of them. 30 was still the threshold of physical invulnerability. One had to make a name for oneself early. Physical invulnerability experts were all in their prime. In the assistant team's office, Sun Tingting, who was wearing a pair of sunglasses and exquisite makeup, swaggered back to her seat. She opened the work group chat and tagged the deputy manager of the technical team. Compile the recordings of the reserve team sparring session as soon as possible. They are rushing us. It just ended. Wiping cold sweat expression, replied the deputy manager of the technical team. At this moment, a lady in the foreign affairs team asked excitedly, the sparring session ended? Who did Lu Cheng fight with? What was the result? Although it was a work group, everyone was rather interested in such matters and often gossiped together. He fought with Yu Wangyuan and won. Sun Tingting pouted. Yu Wangyuan, the senior fourth pin who retired from the military? Lu Cheng is amazing. And he's not even 22 years old yet. He still has a total of 8 years to reach physical invulnerability. As expected of the heavenly son of the era. Endless potential. Amen and Huangbin were watching the discussions in the group. They felt excited and pressured at the same time. They couldn't help but look around the office and realize that many of their colleagues were deep in thought. In the end, they looked at each other. It was as though sparks were flying when their gazes collided in midair. However, for the next few days, Lu Cheng followed his routine and didn't miss a single meal. He didn't arrange for additional transportation and left them with no place to show their prowess. They could only make use of the opportunity to exchange pleasantries and show concern for Leng Nuan to strengthen their impression of him. On Monday afternoon, Lu Cheng didn't go to the training room. Instead, he followed Tu Zheng, Lu Xiaofei, and the rest to the big conference room in the southwest area. The setup here was similar to a classroom, but there was enough space for practice. This was the weekly physical invulnerability class. Coach Lu Yan and martial arts fanatic Gu Jie weren't present. Dragon King Chen Qitao, Empress Luo, Ning Zitong, and Optimus Prime Long Zhen were present. They sat in a row at the head of the table. It was Lu Cheng's first time here. He had only practiced the Fire Sex dance stage chapter for a week. Furthermore, he had the notes of his predecessors for reference. He only had 1 or 2 questions, so he wasn't in a hurry to ask them. He listened quietly at the side. From the interactions between Tu Zheng, Yuan Yuan, and the rest with the physical invulnerability mighty ones, he was able to understand many things by analogy and broaden his horizons. No wonder Sister Ning said to try not to miss it. This is the benefit of being in a strong position. Seeing that the class was coming to an end, Lu Qing stopped being modest. He stood up, raised his hand and greeted politely. The 36th move of the Fire Sect, Devour, is a high-level application of Emperor Yin force. From the notes of our predecessors, the focus is on contraction and weight. When it reaches a certain level, it will naturally produce flashes and flames. However, I still can't find the critical point. Is there a problem with the technique? Hearing this, Chen Qitao, who had been keeping a straight face, stood up slowly. He walked to the center of the field, clenched his fist, and punched forward. Just as he raised his right fist, the surrounding airflow was ignited. Wisps and wisps of airflow were clearly organized, showing the flow of Emperor Yin force in his body. Wisps of flames condensed and contracted on the surface of the Dragon King's fist. They kept compressing and becoming ridiculously heavy. With a boom, a blazing white light exploded, dazzling the eyes. Lu Cheng, Yuan Yuan, and the rest felt as though they were being swallowed by the flames. They could no longer see or feel anything else. If they were to take a direct hit, other than the flash, they would also be hit by the shockwaves and flames. Retracting his fist, the Dragon King looked at Lu Cheng and asked in a low voice, "Do you understand now?" "Understood." Lu Cheng answered blankly. The previous scene was still fresh in his mind. Wait a minute, this is no different from the description of the martial arts or the notes. What the Dragon King is saying is that you can't find the critical point because you are too weak. Then I should understand now. Lu Cheng thought awkwardly. While he was answering, Chen Qitao had already left the conference room with his hands behind his back, announcing the end of the class. For the next few days, Lu Cheng tried to use his Dan equilibrium to forcefully guide the contraction of Devour, and achieved good results. After that, he eagerly began to master the new unique skill. On Friday afternoon, he came to the training ground of the reserve team in an extremely good mood. It was time for sparring again. Moreover, Little Fairy would be returning from America that day. After spending a few days with the elders of both sides, she would fly straight to Huacheng. Lu Cheng casually picked up a paper ball and saw the word 2 written on it in bold strokes. "Who's in the second group?" he asked with a smile. "Me." Tu Zheng chuckled and opened his palm, revealing a piece of paper with the word 2. Chapter 548. The lot drawing ended quickly. The first group was Lu Xiaofei versus Yuan Yuan. The second group was Lu Qing versus Tu Zheng. Sun Jianlin and Jia Lu were the last to enter the arena. After entering the arena and closing the thick glass door, Jia Lu jumped a little and waved her short sword. She was excited and exclaimed, "That's fast. It feels like only 2 to 3 days have passed since the last sparring session. It's pretty tight. Sometimes I wonder if it would be better to have sparring sessions once a month." Sun Jianlin slowly stretched his muscles and bones. Popping sounds came from all over his body. Tu Zheng shook his head. "That would be too long. If we don't apply the lessons we learn to actual combat, we will forget them very quickly. It's true that we won't have any substantial improvement in a week. However, we can use this opportunity to examine the problems that were hidden by our rapid improvement." "That's not a problem, but why do I feel like I've been shot in the knee?" Lu Qing laughed silently. "Leader 2 is right. I feel like I'm stronger and more mature than last Friday. Lu Xiaofei rubbed her hands together and said eagerly. Yes. I'm also not the same person who lost to Lu Qing last Friday. I'm more cautious and stronger. Yu Wangyuan added with a smile. It was only an internal sparring session. It was inevitable that they would be careless. Haha, everyone seems to have a lot of fighting spirit and confidence. Tu Jing laughed loudly. He walked to the center of the arena and acted as the temporary referee. Lu Xiaofei and Yu Wangyuan stood on his left and right respectively, with a distance of more than 20 meters between them. This atmosphere is pretty good. Lu Qing praised from the bottom of his heart. Yeah, as long as we don't eat together and fool around, I still like this kind of life. It's very suitable for practicing martial arts. Of course, it's another matter if I'm lonely and can't sleep well after returning home. Coco would be here soon. There was no time for conversation. The match started quickly. Lu Xiaofei and Yu Wangyuan couldn't be more familiar with each other. Every time they tested each other, they would engage in an intense exchange of fire. The scene was gorgeous. If the spectators closed their eyes, they would feel like they were in a battlefield filled with cannon fire. Yu Wangyuan had obtained his 4th pin certification earlier than Lu Xiaofei. He was more mature, but his fighting style was more aggressive. It was more in line with the gist of trueness of fire-like invasion, and he firmly controlled the rhythm. Lu Xiaofei, on the other hand, was calm and composed, like a burning red flame. Although she was at a disadvantage, she did not panic. Finally, she caught the problem in the opponent's connection and launched a counterattack. Switching from defense to offense, Lu Xiaofei demonstrated her shocking explosive ability to Lu Qing and the rest. Her sacrificial explosion and force concentration stage ignited a prairie fire. Every step she took was firm and steady. Every move she made closed in, forcing Yu Wangyuan to bring out his trump card in advance. It was the purple sun that he hadn't been able to use in his battle with Lu Qing last week. The 11th move of the fire sect, Purple Sun, a simplified physical invulnerability move, Purple Sun. This was a move that was both offensive and defensive. Its execution speed would not be faster than the internal explosion, used by martial artists of the same realm, but it was a close-range defensive move. Even if there were not many openings, it could still be executed in time. The moment Purple Sun was executed, the space 5 centimeters in front of Yu Wangyuan was immediately filled with the golden red flames that spewed out from his mouth and palm, creating a vortex. The golden red flames were quickly dyed purple, trapping Lu Xiaofei's fist. Her double explosion was unable to hit her opponent, only shattering the vortex. The purple flames were like arrows, shooting outwards and messing up the situation. Yu Wangyuan seized the opportunity and regained the initiative. He controlled the rhythm and did not give Lu Xiaofei any chance to turn the tables. Even if she did the same and used Purple Sunday, Lu Qing watched attentively. He realized that no matter if it was Yu Wangyuan or Lu Xiaofei, once they used Purple Sun, their expressions would inevitably show signs of fatigue. Their bodily functions would also decrease to a certain extent. Therefore, he had a clear understanding of the exhaustion of this simplified physical invulnerability move. After the first battle, the few of them gathered together. With Yu Wangyuan and Lu Xiaofei as the center, they summarized the battle and exchanged their views. After this matter was settled, the other 3 retreated and leaned against the edge of the glass that was resistant to high temperatures and attacks. Only Lu Qing and Tu Zheng were left facing off against each other with Sun Jianlin in between. Tu Zheng smiled and glanced at Lu Qing. He took a step back and measured the distance with his legs. When both parties were standing at their predetermined positions, he lowered his waist and extended his right hand forward. He got into a fighting stance and looked rather carefree. Lu Qing responded with a smile and got into his stance too. Before the referee could raise his hand, he suddenly saw golden red flames leaping out from his opponent's eyes. He could feel the illusory flames burning fiercely and sweeping towards him. No, they were not purely illusory. They had really heated up the surrounding airflow. As he breathed, his airway was burning and he could vaguely feel it burning. His aura interfered with reality, and his mind shone into matter. Lu Cheng's bursting aura could only affect his opponent's spirit and suppress his opponent's mind. It was impossible for him to change the real environment. Even if the degree was very low, it could only be used as a form of harassment. This was a mystical ability that could only be possessed by someone close to physical invulnerability. Impressive. He channeled his ice force and condensed crystals into the inner walls of his nostrils to reduce the temperature of the airflow that entered his body. This was to prevent the airflow from harming his more delicate and weaker respiratory system. To an inhuman, not breathing for a few minutes wasn't a big deal. However, that was under the circumstances where there was no consumption of energy or internal training. In actual combat, one couldn't hold their breath all the time in order to ensure that one's body was in the best condition. Sun Jianlin looked left and right and took 2 steps back. He swung his arm down abruptly and said, "Begin." Tu Zheng took a step forward with his right leg. It was as though the locomotive of a high-speed train was pulling his body forward. With a clang, he was not far away from Lu Cheng. The high temperature and strong wind that he created could almost blow his opponent away and burn his eyes, invading like fire. Just as he stopped, he had already retracted his qi and blood. His right arm swung out along with the eruption of a volcano. He clenched his fist tightly and the golden-red flames intertwined. Lu Cheng didn't do any dodging. Now wasn't the time to practice his body movement. Only by experiencing more would he be able to fit his predetermined plan. Hence, he used force concentration and placed both his feet together. He used one hand to shield his face and the other to pull back diagonally. He swung out violently. The scarlet flames that were close to white stuck to the surface of his fist, as though they were going to burn and tear apart the enemy. Bam! Tu Zheng's fist exerted force in advance and hit the empty space. The golden-red flames flowed out and gathered into a ball before collapsing rapidly. Boom! The dazzling white light blinded Lu Cheng's retina. The wind and waves in front of him surged forward. The flames engulfed him like a torrential rain and flood, as though they were going to swallow him whole. The 36th move of the fire sect, Devour. Tu Zheng had used fire force to execute the Devour move that Lu Cheng had asked him about last week. It was as though he was trying to prove something. Lu Cheng had already thought of a countermeasure. He didn't panic. A layer of ice armor instantly formed on his face, limbs and chest. It reflected the scarlet glow and flowed with extraordinary splendor. Bam bam bam. Waves of flames hit different parts of his body like a torrential rain, melting the ice layer and turning it into water. It moistened the ground but quickly evaporated. Without this additional defense, Lu Cheng's skin would have been burned and his body would have suffered injuries. Although he could recover after a period of time through the vigorous exchange of old and new injuries, he would still feel uncomfortable for a while. After mastering the realm of encountering gods in the void, self-reflection, the 2 old scars on his body gradually faded away and looked brand new. Bam! The violent airwaves were neutralized by Lu Cheng's scorching punch. His feet didn't move an inch, and his center of gravity didn't waver. In the lake in his heart, the water froze into ice. The clarity of the ice acted as a mirror, reflecting his surroundings and replacing his eyes to grasp the situation. Lu Cheng suddenly realized that things weren't going well. He tilted his body abruptly and his muscles expanded, rubbing against the air barrier at high speed. He raised his left hand again and blocked in front of his face. At this moment, Tu Zheng threw out a punch with his left fist that looked casual, but was in fact tightly connected. The surface of his fist was golden red and tinged with purple. It was heavy and heavy. Whoosh! The surrounding airflow suddenly collapsed inwards. The already hot air was ignited in an instant, and turned into patches of scarlet red that pounced towards Tu Zheng's fist. Wherever it passed, Lu Cheng blocked it. Previously, it was arrows that came from the inside out. Now it was raindrops that came from the outside in. The 116th move of the fire sect, Flying Moth. Together with the changes in the environment caused by the momentum, this was its true form. It didn't need to be prepared with continuous scorching punches like Lu Cheng. It was swift, ruthless, and dreamy. Bam! As Lu Cheng turned, he stirred up a strong wind that blew away many of the flying moths. He relied on the remnants of his ice armor and his own strength to resist the attack. Taking a step forward, Tu Zheng closed in and punched out with his right fist. It was heavy and ruthless, as though he wanted to use the visual error caused by the density of the airflow to defeat his opponent. However, when Lu Qing used the ice mirror as the core to make an effective defense, his fire force exploded silently, giving his fist a second push. It strangely changed its position and smashed fiercely into Lu Cheng's shoulder. The use of jet spray was extremely appropriate at this moment. Captain Tu seems to be very serious today. Jia Lu muttered to herself, amused and surprised. Usually he would hold back when he fought. Swallowing and flying moth were all moves that Lu Qing had asked about or used before. Does this count as half a lesson? Sun Jianlin casually mentioned. Which martial artist wasn't competitive and had the desire to suppress their opponent? Chapter 549. Scorching heat stacked around him as the flying moths came one after another. Even with the ice mirror in his heart, Lu Qing felt that everything was in chaos. If it were anyone else, they would have been flustered and wouldn't have the time to think about the errors caused by the high temperature distorting their vision. However, he blocked with his arm accurately as though it was measured with a ruler. He wasn't affected at all. Facing Tu Zheng's crutch, the muscles on his back swelled. His spine was pulled like a dragon or a bowstring, causing his body to tilt to one side. He dodged Tu Zheng's crutch perfectly. At the same time, his unmoving right leg tightened. The moment he stabilized his center of gravity, he kicked out like a steel whip. This was the result of his experience after sparring with Yu Wangyuan last week. Facing the direction change of jet spray, one couldn't just dodge or dodge blindly. One had to seize the opportunity and use offense as defense. Otherwise, one would definitely lose if one continued to defend. However, Tu Zheng seemed to have expected this. He didn't stop his fist in the air and swung it downwards, causing his body to fall forward. Taking advantage of the momentum, he stepped out with his left leg and used his knee to hit the side of Lu Cheng's whip leg. Without any hesitation, he neutralized his opponent's counterattack. Being close to physical invulnerability, he also had the realm of encountering gods in the void, self-reflection. His left arm shook and his fist shook. Halfway through he changed direction again, forcing Lu Cheng to retreat. Pa. Crisp sounds rang out continuously as Tu Zheng continued to attack with jet spray. The distance between him and Lu Cheng was getting smaller and smaller. Once he stepped into the range of close-range combat, the change in direction from the second-stage explosion wouldn't be so easy to dodge. During this process, his steps were precise and complemented his attacks perfectly, leaving no gaps. It was as though he was a robot. Lu Cheng had no choice but to retreat in an orderly manner. Everywhere he passed, sand and pebbles flew and strong winds blew. Compared to Captain Tu, your jet spray isn't good enough. Jia Lu tilted her head and said to Yu Chua, who specialized in this unique skill. Yu Wangyuan's eyes darkened. He mocked himself. Our realms are different, so of course there's no comparison. If I could make a breakthrough in encountering gods in the void, I wouldn't be any weaker than Captain Tuesday Sai. It's a pity that the fire sect doesn't have the ice mirror, and can only weaken things that aren't very effective. Without a level, you can't even touch the realm of all-seeing God, sighed Lu Xiaofei. All-seeing God was another name for encountering gods in the void. The so-called God also referred to himself. While the three inhumans were conversing, the corners of their eyes never left the center of the field. They were unwilling to miss any detail. Bang bang bang. Lu Cheng's footprints were left behind as he fought and retreated. Gradually he was forced to the edge of the arena. Behind him was the transparent glass that separated the arena from the training ground. Pa! Tu Zheng's left fist was like a venomous snake. Suddenly he lifted his head and brushed past Lu Cheng's arm, which was hammering downwards to block the attack, before shooting towards his throat at lightning speed. Lu Cheng bent his back halfway and leaned back, allowing his opponent's fist to reach the clouds. In this twisted posture he swung his right arm backward, turning it into a whip and lashed it towards Tu Zheng's lower abdomen. Tu Zheng didn't panic. He shrunk his shoulders and swung his arms slightly to counter Lu Cheng's single whip. At this moment he suddenly heard an explosion coming from the horizon. It was muffled and unclear. No, it didn't come from the horizon. It came from Lu Cheng's wrist and fist. Bam! Lu Cheng's arm that was swung backward bounced back. His fist seemed to spurt out a tail of flames as it shot towards the sky like a rocket. It avoided Tu Zheng's block and blasted towards the area between his neck and chest. Fire Sec's 15th move, Jet Spray. For the past week, other than studying the swallow move, his focus had been on practicing Jet Spray. With his control over his body, it wasn't difficult for him to perform a double explosion. It was just that Emperor Yen Force was more violent than Fire Force and caused more damage to the body. If not for Lu Cheng's precise control, he wouldn't have been able to execute it consecutively. However, he also couldn't do it as easily as Tu Zheng and continuously execute it. Everyone has their strengths and weaknesses. The fist rapidly enlarged in his eyes. Tu Zheng's expression changed slightly. The muscles on his chest caved in, and even the sound of his bones cracking could be heard. In an instant, the area above Tu Zheng's chest caved in. His body floated backwards, causing Lu Cheng's fist to hit empty air. Great! Seeing that his opponent had also mastered Jet Spray, Tu Zheng's eyes flashed with a reddish-gold light as he got more excited. No matter what he thought in private, once he entered a battle, the stronger his opponent was, the more excited he would be. When Lu Cheng straightened his back like a spring, Tu Zheng lowered his center of gravity and gathered his chi and blood. Following the explosion of Dan Force, he threw a punch forward. His martial arts suit bulged inch by inch as though there were flood dragons swimming underneath. They gathered at the surface of his fist and condensed into a reddish-gold light that rapidly collapsed inward. Fire Sec's 36th move, Swallow. Seeing this, Lu Cheng straightened his back and followed up with force concentration. Using Dan Equilibrium to guide the flood dragons, he threw a punch forward. The reddish-white light turned into a ball of flames and instantly contracted. It was the same swallow, but a different force. The appearance of the white ball of flames was heavy and heavy, pulling Tu Zheng's reddish-gold light. Boom! Light exploded and illuminated the entire arena. More than half of the formed shockwaves surged towards Tu Zheng. Flames shot out continuously like rain and hit the waves one by one. Just like how Jet Spray was more suitable for Fire Force, Swallow was a perfect match for Emperor Yen Force. It was slightly better than Fire Force and had a slight counter effect. Using Dan Equilibrium as a guide, Lu Cheng had greatly reduced the gap between him and Tu Zheng in terms of level, experience, and proficiency. Using the Swallow style in front of Emperor Yen, this is my chance. Lu Cheng's muscles bulged and he pushed his body forward, stirring up a strong wind that accelerated the flow of flames. Tu Zheng raised his left hand and blocked in front of his head. His muscles bulged like a balloon and pushed outwards to offset the shock waves and deflect the arrows of flames. Bam bam bam. His clothes were torn apart by the reddish-red flames. Scorch marks appeared on his skin one after another. Lu Cheng took the initiative to slow down his pace. While his opponent was defending passively, he visualized Emperor Yen in his mind. His core was the heavy Virokana. This Virokana wrapped around the Virokana crashed into the boundless cold. Mutated version of Severe Warning. Lu Cheng took half a step forward and punched out from his waist with his left fist. Everywhere it passed, the colors seemed to darken. Tu Zheng's eyelids twitched. His eyes immediately turned reddish gold and were dyed purple. Phew! He raised his palms and opened them in front of him. Faint purple flames gushed out and intertwined with the flames in his mouth, forming a dreamy whirlpool that blocked Lu Cheng's punch. Fire Sec's 11th move, Simplified Physical Invulnerability, Purple Sun. Poof! Lu Cheng's gloomy left fist was like a fire extinguisher. As soon as it hit the purple vortex, it dissipated into thin air. There was no follow-up jet of counterattack. Boom! Gloomy darkness exploded and purple sparks flew everywhere. Tu Zheng's body swayed and retreated more than 10 meters, as though he was trying to catch his breath. Lu Cheng's qi and blood circulated and stimulated his body. Using the simplified attainment formula, he caught up with Tu Zheng and raised his right fist. In just a few seconds, the offensive and defensive positions were switched. Seeing this, Lu Xiaofei and the others were slightly stunned. They had a deeper understanding of Lu Cheng's cruelty. Seeing that Lu Cheng was closing in on him, Tu Zheng's eyes narrowed. His reddish-gold eyes painted a complicated picture. The surrounding airflow increased in temperature. Lu Cheng felt as though he had been thrown into a blast furnace. His body was melting inch by inch. Countless cracks appeared on his ice mirror, and it turned into water. This was the combination of a secret mental skill and an environment that changed his aura slightly. This was the fire sex secret skill, the 335th move, Infernal Purgatory. With a thought, he drew the forwarding formula. Lu Cheng's ice mirror quickly stabilized, but his movements were inevitably sluggish. It was this delay that allowed Tu Zheng to leap forward without lifting his leg. He swung his arm and smashed his fist towards his opponent's head. Lu Cheng had just raised his arm and got into a stance when he ignited the fire force. His fist turned diagonally and hit his opponent's shoulder. Jet spray again. Lu Cheng lowered his waist and shoulders and leaned back slightly to avoid the attack. His other hand swung outwards, intending to counterattack. Heavy and heavy. At this moment, Tu Zheng's fist made another dull sound. As though it had received another push, it swung sideways and stopped right beside Lu Cheng's neck. Lu Cheng couldn't dodge in time. Triple push. Tu Zheng had actually completed the second change of direction. This was the highest level of jet spray. He was close to physical invulnerability, and had reached the realm of encountering gods in the void. He could control his body precisely and had barely mastered it. He had split the fire force into internal and external parts and separated them. He would first explode outwards before exploding inwards. This was his first time using it today. Lu Cheng wasn't the only one stunned. Even the referee, Sun Jianlin, and the rest were stunned. Impressive. Lu Cheng kept his stance and praised from the bottom of his heart. As expected of a mighty one who was close to physical invulnerability. You're not bad yourself. Tu Zheng, who had won the match, was in a good mood and gave him a thumbs up. Leader 2, you were holding back just now. For the Battle of the Kings? That's not enough. Yu Wangyuan and the rest gathered around and lamented with complicated expressions. I just mastered it. Tu Zheng replied humbly. All right, let's exchange our views on the match just now. After Sun Jianlin defeated Jia Lu, the sparring session ended. The technical team started to work on the video. At this moment, someone in the Longhu Club work group asked curiously, how was the sparring session for the reserve team today? Who did Lu Cheng fight with? He fought with Leader Tuesday. Sun Tingting thought for a few seconds and replied with 3 words. What was the result? The girl from the Foreign Affairs team gossiped. Is there a need to ask? Sun Tingting replied with a smiley face. That's true. The rest chimed in. You're tuning in to the Li Mei Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.